Welcome back, everyone, to another Stock Market Open Live. Today, we actually have a little bit of a mixed open. Look at this. We actually have Meta, after being down 196, up 35 basis points. Tesla, look at that perfect bounce right there, 250.06. It's currently down, which you saw right before the close as well, mind you. Currently down about 68 basis points, bobbing around that 250 level. Really important that we hold 250. As long as we hold 250, pretty confident we're looking at 258 as a simple fib stop. After we actually fully break out at 258, should be heading over to 300 before that good old robotaxi event might take. AMD actually surprising. This was up yesterday about 40 to 50 basis points in the post market. Presently down 53 basis points. Made some dollar hollers on AMD options yesterday. That's very good, very good. We've got let's see what other big movers we've got. Bitcoin. Look at this, 57.4. And this is after that good old German government doing some more dumpy doodling. Kind of shows you there's definitely you don't have the largest capacitor, so to speak. In other words, one entity doing some dumping can really lead to some price action there on Bitcoin. It's somewhat surprising, but it's one of the indicators that has sort of been taken away. I like using Bitcoin as a market indicator, but can't really do that when sort of one or few entities are specifically dumping crypto or Bitcoin assets and screwing up my indicators. Anyway, up 148 on Nvidia, kind of remarkable. Yeah, think about that. You've got AMD. That's actually down, 30, 40 basis points, while NVIDIA's up 150, and Supermicro, which ended the day up 6.3%, sitting up another 85 basis points right here in the pre-market. A lot of folks speculating if Supermicro is going to try to run to 1,000 again. We'll see. Snowflake, 28, Intel, up another 2.6, wow. Intel yesterday was up 6%, today up another 2.71. Cost Corp down another 13 as the momentum is gone. Although, of course, some people are going to bet that it's returning. It is presently not. Here. All right, let's see here. Let's look at some social mentions. Let's see what things are doing out there. So presently, top of the trending, we've got SoFi today, and let's see what the movement is on SoFi and see if there's any move on SoFi. No, it's not moving at all. So why that's at the top of mentions, I don't know. SoFi at $6.36. And if there's any news, I doubt it on that sort of movement. Yeah, no, there is not. Okie dokie. Alright, so no SoFi news, but other than it just being active in social media mentions. Okay, got it. What do we got over here? Nike brings back retired executive to fix slumping sales. Okay, what's their strategy? Let's hear it.
I can speak from my own personal perspective on this.
We know what you buy. You've told us all.
Sure, I know where to get Nike from. I don't think they've got a distribution problem. I think they've got a design problem.
Or a relevancy to the people who buy sneakers, which are runners and athletic endeavors.
I don't know if there's a design problem, a relevance to runners. I mean, there's so much competition now. That's the problem with shoes. You just go on Amazon. There's shoes galore. What do I wait for a Nike shoe for when I can get a million running shoes? I don't know. I'm gonna try this. Running shoes on Amazon. Let's see what we got and give it a little bit of a compare. Oh, hold on a second.
To do that, it's not anymore.
Okay, let's move on from this story. You can't keep it together. That's the latest on Nike. The latest this morning for the market, it's all about this. All eyes on Capitol Hill at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Fed Chair Jay Powell.
Yeah, Jerome Powell. Okay, we know. I know. I'll be covering it. It's not a surprise. Okay. Yeah, which I should have probably changed the title. But whatever. So let's see here. Yeah, I guess I could change the title on YouTube and just have to restart X. They don't let you change the title. Anyway. Those knuckleheads. Alright, so look at this. So I'm going to go past the sponsored results. You have Nike here, Nike Pegasus for $99. But look at that. I got an Under Armour for $64. New Balance for $62. Brooks for $59. Man, I thought, back in the day, and this was like pre-inflation, I always remember it, if you wanted like a good pair of running shoes, you would expect to drop like $120. And, $60 is like half off now. Holy smokes. Under Armour, Commit. What is this? I don't even know who Capson is. How is that a running shoe? Really? That's a running shoe? Alright. I mean, I like running. But, yeah, look at all this choice here. This is insane. Now if I just specify, but so far Nike is the most expensive here. By a bit. Now, there are some other cheaper Nikes, I'm pretty sure I saw. Where's the next cheap Nike? Oh, I have to... I have to go down like 3 or 4 rows. Wow, look at that. They're now doing sponsored in the results. Those knuckleheads. Look at this. So people have gotten so used to that the first results are sponsored that they go past the sponsoreds, start looking at the rows, and look at this. Here's a whole nother sponsored row. So like when you scroll, it's built into... Oh, that one is too. Oh, yeah. Is this one sponsored or is this one sponsored? This one's sponsored. These 4 are sponsored. There we go. Oh my gosh. Boy, they've made this complicated. They don't want you to know. There's another sponsored one. That's quite interesting. Sponsoreds. They just sprinkled them everywhere like salt and pepper. Oh, Amazon's brilliant. Anyway, so let me go to like Nike. If I just type in Nike specifically. Yeah, see? And then you get some women's running shoes over here, 139. See, that's more what I'm used to back in the day. There you go. Nike Airs, $100. Even 100 was cheap back then. There, 120. That's a little more typical, I feel like. Road running. Oh, okay. Now we're specifying to road running. Anyway. Maybe it's supposed to help your knees or something. The roads just bash you up. But anyway. But yeah. See, that's interesting. Yeah, most people do. Like you go, some Nick D here says, I always skip sponsored. I feel like that's like everybody's been sort of like, gotten used to that. Where it's like you type something into Google and you just scroll past the first like 4 because they're just the ads. Or the same thing on like Yelp. But now, see, like, this is how you know Amazon's brilliant. Rather than allow you to get away with that manipulation. I mean, they tricked me. I didn't realize they were sprinkling ads into here. I just noticed it myself just now. And I don't think if I was... I mean, I'm also paying attention a little bit more right now. I don't know that I would have noticed otherwise. See, that look how blended in this looks. See, it's like I'm looking. Oh, okay, not sponsored. Okay, Nike, $68, $57, $68. Oh, $32 and Prime? Oh, let me click on that. Boom, that was an ad. And then when you get here, it don't look like an ad. It actually looks like I got a whole lot of choice. Dude, how can you be a sneaker company? I mean, I guess the reviews of this one aren't that great. So, but boy, it's certainly gotten harder to compete. No doubt about that. These Under Armour, look at this, $55. for 59,000 reviews. Try before you buy. That's crazy. All right, size. Okay, everybody knows I'm like 15x wide. Oh, darn. It's so large. I'm limited to... I don't get all the fun colors. Oh. Anyway. All right. Crazy. That's all. I mean, that's just an example of... oh, I guess I clicked off. I don't know why I did that. My bad. There you go. So anyway, I'll show that again. But anyway, so I just went down the size, and they always have the limited selection for the size. But what I was saying was, over here, you know, here you have not sponsored. So not sponsored, not sponsored, not sponsored. And then your eyeball just goes to the price, because it's big, right? Price and if Prime is available. 68, 57, 68. Oh, only 32 in Prime? Now, the reviews aren't that great, is what I was saying over here. So then you might go over here. Oh, well, this one has good reviews, 48. You just don't even see the sponsored anymore. They've really, really gotten good. I mean, look at this. Here's like the 5th or 6th row where you've got one not sponsored, and then it's sponsor, 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 sponsor. That's crazy. That's tough to compete with. I think somebody in the chat mentioned that Etsy's doing that now as well. Nike hasn't even had the best running shoes for years. When I was in cross country years ago, no one on the team liked running shoes. Yeah, it's a lot of competition. Yeah, you know, Under Armour. I mean, just look at what happened to Under Armour. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people are buying the dip on Nike, but you know, look at Under Armour. I mean, that's the week chart. Let me go to the month chart. This is the month chart for Under Armour. It peaked in 2015. Oh my God. And you could go back 12 years. Hey, long-term investors, go back 12 years. Sorry, 13 years. And ask yourself how much money you would have if you invested in Under Armour 13 years ago. The answer is the same amount. That's crazy. Alternatively, what would be a lot more entertaining is if you invested in Under Armour, you know, if you invested about $100 in Under Armour 8.5 years ago, you'd have about $5 left today. That's nuts. That's just crazy. They won't stop there. Soon you'll get 90% ads as revenue goes down. Ooh, trashing Amazon. Maybe. Etsy do this too. That's interesting. Get running shoes from Costco under $100. You can actually get running shoes at Costco? That's why Kobe hated Nike? Or some other brand paid him more. Oh, don't say that about Kobe, Kevin. Just saying. Running shoes. Huh. Yeah, you can actually get some. What is this? The men's have a worse review than the ladies. I don't actually have that many choices over there at Amazon or Costco. Actually, less with inflation. Yeah, that's true. If you inflation adjust, that's actually a really good point. You know, if let's say the average right now is like $70, it used to be say 120. I have to inflation adjust down the 70, so 70 represents. I have to divide 70 by what? 70 represents 1.3. Yeah, that's almost as if they're $54 shoes now. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a good point. All right. Imagine wearing Under Armour. Really is Under Armour really that bad? People got. I used to like Under Armour. That was like the thing. Thermal stuff, the cold gear, warm gear. Anyway, especially if you're going skiing. Vice had a hit piece on Amazon today. Problem is, you know, when I try to look up Vice, all I get is this, and it's a little annoying. We'll try that again. I don't actually see that hit piece. Where's that? Let's try again. Vice News. Amazon sellers disguise ban. Oh, it's about gun parts. Oh, okay. Amazon sellers disguise banned gun parts as bike handlebars. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I mean, also keep in mind, like, these are like a lot. I don't know that Amazon goes through every single listing that's posted there. They must. Otherwise, it'd be even more spammy. But that's interesting. That's an interesting trick. New pair of rubber black handlebars for $26.99. Quick and easy install. Just slide the bike handlebar grips. I mean, that's a pretty good trick. If that listing is reviewed, that's a pretty good trick. That's a good one. Excellent product. My bicycle goes as fast as a motorcycle now. And is very comfortable to ride with these handlebar grips. ... A retired American patriot. This is comedy. Oh, this is a good one. I highly recommend them for those smaller bicycles that you want to have be a full-sized bicycle feel. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's actually funny. That's pretty brilliant, honestly. Like, yeah, I don't blame Amazon for this. That's smart. That's ingenious. Like, I'd fool me. I don't know what that look like. I don't know. Yeah, imagine. I mean, how if these listings have to be approved, how many listings you have to go through? You gotta be a pain in the butt. It's got 24 reviews. What am I gonna complain about? It looks 24. At least what? Usually I feel like only 1 in 10 people leave reviews. Maybe on these particular bike handlebars, you know, it's like 1 in 3 people leave a review. But you know, I don't know, that means like 70 to 80 people bought some of these handlebars and liked them. Who am I gonna complain? Anyway, that's fascinating. I doubt Amazon stock cars. It doesn't. You know, it's really having a hard time, by the way, clearing out the $200 order book. It just keeps getting stuck there. Why is it a big deal, though? You don't have to register handlebars. I guess there was something about the ATF having banned these attachments. The rules took effect in January and require certain weapons with stabilizing braces or similar attachments to be registered. No thanks. I don't want to sign up for updates. ATF factoring criteria for firearms without stabilizing braces. Clarify when a rifle is designed, made, and intended to be fired from the shoulder. Stabilizing brace or other rearward attachment. Blah, blah, blah. Remove the short barrel and attach a 16-inch or longer rifle barrel. Yeah, okay. Have you ever seen a P90 in California? Oh, they totally ruined it. P90 California legal. It's so ruined. So let's see here. Normal P90. So I'll show you all a normal one too. So top right here. Top right, normal P90. And now look at the demented California legal P90, okay? Right? And specifically pay attention to the barrel. See how it's short and stubby? You know, so you could like hold it under a suit jacket like the Secret Service does. And look at this. What the hell? California. Anyway, so where were we? Neutered. That's pretty funny. 100% destroyed. Yeah, dude. That's a fantastic firearm. You haven't ever done it. You gotta go to like Vegas or something where it's legal and go shoot it. Anyway. Alright. So, where were we? Let's see. I think we're gonna look and see what markets are saying. Emerging markets lean hard on AI. Man, I'm so exhausted by this AI. I honestly think we are so overbuilding AI. I totally see Kevin with a P90 by his bed. Have you seen what we got here? This is the real firearm everybody should have by their bed. Right here. Nobody gets away from this. The bullets literally follow you around the corner. Alright. So. But yeah, anyway, I still think the amount of AI spending is honestly overblown for the level of output we're getting. Can we see the trends that are going on? Check this out. I threw this on eHack. Yeah. I knew somebody was gonna complain about the whole trigger thing. I had to pull the trigger so you could see the light. So that's just the way it works. Like, I don't know if you could tell, but this actually has. It's a little hard to tell right now because it's so bright. But when you pull the trigger once on one of the modes, it'll turn on all these lights. This thing's freaking awesome. See these little lights here. Here, it actually turns them on up here as well, and there's another one right here. It shows you like how much ammo you have, and then as you shoot it, these darken, so like it's fully lit, and then it gets like the lights turn off over time, which is kind of cool, honestly. It's pretty sick. So yeah, there we go. See, now the lights are off. And it's sort of like pull trigger to wake. It's a Nerf gun, you know? But anyway, yeah, I so many people ask me about it. Like, this, every time I mention it, it's like, it's worth like $5, which is totally fine. Like, I like mentioning it. But I made an easy link for it. Amazon.com/Needler. That's my affiliate link for it. Oh no, they got rid of it. What the hell? Okay, fine, whatever. No, sorry, it's metkevin.com/Needler. That's what it was. metkevin.com/Needler. Duh. Yeah. That was my link for it. But look at the reviews on. Oh my god, the price has crashed. Bro, I got scammed. Oh, come on, I got scammed. Look at that review though. Oh my gosh, it's like a perfect 5. When do you see a perfect 5? It's crazy. But what's actually crazy is, hold on a sec. I'm going to go into my Amazon now, and I want to see what I paid for this. metkevin.com/Needler. Bro! Full-on deflation, man. What a scam. Look at this. Bro! Needler deflation here, man. I got it when it was, like, brand new. $142. I saw it and I'm like, yes. Can I please pay more? Is what I said. $142. Now, are you kidding me? $67? Bro, this is like the best gift ever. Like, I'm sorry I'm shilling this so hard. Like, I just love this. I mean, this is so cool. Like, I feel like I need to DCA into the Needler just so I can have a nut. Like, that's it. I'm DCAing the Needler. Screw it. I'm gonna DCA. MattKevin.com/Needler. There. Okay, now my average cost basis will go down. Proceed to checkout. Come on, baby. So now, place order. There, did it. Okay, now my average cost basis of 142 plus 67 divided by 2. Dang it! My cost base is still over $100, and they're selling. Even though I just bought 2, see, I gotta buy 3. I'm not gonna do that. You know, but what is? See, this is how they know. This is how they know you're a gamer. Estimated delivery tomorrow. You saved $13.37 in shipping fees. Oh, come on, man. This is just ridiculous. This is apps. This is whatever. Okay. All right. So, where were we? I don't know where we were. Oh, yeah. We know that Powell's going to speak today. What's the news alert? Let's listen in.
Men with some damning conclusions. So we were right all along. Those middlemen. Bertha Coombs joins us now with more. Hey, Bertha.
Hey, Joe. The FTC's interim report argues that pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs, have gotten too big and
yeah, I don't care what the pharmacy benefit manager, blah, blah, blah. What is this? Somebody wrote, what a waste. Who are you? Deflation on non-essential items, recession, cough, cough. I mean, yeah, honestly, probably. Was it Halo 3 that introduced dual wielding? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think in Halo 2 I could dual wield. You might be right. Yeah, you might be right. So I remember all the pistols were always single in Halo 2. Was it Halo 2? I don't remember that. Oh no, everybody says Halo 2. Really? Then I must be thinking about Halo 1. Wow, really? It was Halo 2. I see. I can't place them. I played Halo 1, 2, and 3. I haven't really played any of the other ones. Oh, that's crazy. It's been so long. Nice. Okay, so that's crazy. I don't remember that. I remember, I mean, back then, everybody used to do the standby glitch on multiplayer. Does anybody remember that? You go play capture the flag, drive the Warthog up to the back of an enemy base. Somebody's got to pull the Ethernet plug out of their modem if they were hosting for like no more than 6 seconds. Run over, grab the flag, plug it back in, and all of a sudden you just teleport. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But that was that happened a lot. Boy, standby glitching. Boy, that was a long time ago. That's crazy. I can't remember that. Anyway, okay. So let's see here. Let's find out what else is going on. Okie dokie. Let's see here. Bitcoin rebounds after ETF investors buy the dip. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, look at those inflows. Take a look at these. Ooh, look at that. Nice inflows. Wow. Massive inflows over here at the end of May. And here you got the outflows in June and mid-June. But really nice inflows here recently. Yeah, probably because you just have people thinking like, oh, okay, well, you know, it's selling off because of Germany. Therefore, buy the dip. All right. Interesting.
The Fed chairman speaks at about an hour's time in front of the Senate.
Oh, Splinter Cell. So Splinter Cell was extremely underrated. The problem with Splinter Cell was the learning curve was so high. So I actually went to the Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow midnight release and the Chaos Theory midnight release at GameStop. I actually played Splinter Cell with Lauren, but that was, I think I played what was it, Double Agent, the 4th one with Lauren. But anyway, as a kid, I played Chaos Theory and Pandora Tomorrow. Those were some of the best games ever. Like Spy versus Mercenary, that was really good stuff. The problem is the learning curve was so long, like the game population just wouldn't last in multiplayer. So basically, it was like noobs versus pros after about 3 to 6 months. No.
Kevin Carnard, a Parkinson's specialist, made 8 visits to the White House in 8 months. At the press briefing, Karine Jean-Pierre refused to offer any detail on those visits. The press corps erupted. It looks like Biden is losing the media. To the markets, look at this. The S&P and the Nasdaq closed at records Monday, and they're moving up just a little bit more today. The Dow up maybe 9 points, but the Nasdaq, you're looking at a 60-point gain there, a modest gain for the S&P 500. Now, Fed Chair Powell, he testifies in Congress today. He could move the markets. Interest rates, we have the...
Yeah, that's true. He could. So somebody's saying, check if it was a third-party sale. Oh, so you think maybe I got, like, resold, huh? Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, that could have been a reseller. That's interesting. So this is now being sold. Ah, yeah, this is from the Nerf store now. How interesting. Oh, they got a lot of Nerf guns, yeah. Buy now, jeez. It is such a great product. What, they have Nerf shoes now? Oh, okay, with a couple ammo pouches. Oh, these are Crocs, aren't they? Please don't tell me it's a Crocs collab. Oh, Lord. Oh, and they're getting into the gel blasters now, too. Those things are so messy. By far, the best are the ones with the blue balls. Everybody loves blue balls. All right, so let's get to work over here. Oh, Gears of War. Used to play that. Not much, though. Honestly, I went back to Splinter Cell a lot. Halo Reach, I never really played. Battlefield, never really got into. Rainbow Six Vegas. Yeah, Rainbow Six Las Vegas. I used to call that Resolve. I don't know why. I thought it was cool that you could, like, shorten it if you took out the vowels. Spies vs. Mer, yeah. Well, maybe one day they'll actually come with a new one. Still holding end phase calls. Am I? I traded end phase a bit yesterday, but I want to get some long-term calls on that one. Because I just had like 1 or 2 weeks yesterday. Let's see. Powell, better. You know, let's talk about that. So Powell talks today. You know, I really think if he was going to plant the seeds on rate cuts, he would have started last week to, like, get a feeling for what the market would do before congressional testimony. But he didn't do it. He sort of gave up on it. Now, you did have Nick T kind of start suggesting or probing. Let me see. Nick Tirmos. Trying to find if he has anything else new recently. Nick T. Nicky Leaks. A lot of talk about inflation expectations. And let's just look at it together here. Okay, one sec. I'm gonna do this. Okay. There we go. So, SF Fed President Daly lays out some of the risk management puzzles. Can't just say for sure that because the labor market is strong today, it's going to be strong tomorrow. Right, I thought that was a good reference. I remember that. That was part of the case for the September rate cut slow, or builds after slower jobs data. Okay, we went through that. The share of households who, and there wasn't really much in there. It's not like anyone from the Fed implied anything. It was just sort of suggesting markets were pricing in a higher chance. The share of households who think they'll be better off in a year has edged. down since the start of the year. Okay. Perceptions about the ability to access credit have not changed much. That's fair. 1 and 3 year inflation ahead. Expectations. I mean, that's fine. They're basically... So remember, if expectations are around 3, you tend to get about 2% inflation. I always thought that was really weird. Kind of like Fox News just playing this on loop with Joe Biden. Him kind of... yeah, and this is sort of... this was supposedly him greeting another person who landed or whatever. But they've certainly clipped him to make him look funny. Sorry. I personally think it's ludicrous that he's still capable of... Like, I think there should be, like, a rule that, like, bans someone from being president once they... Like when they can't remember. I don't know. Anyway, SF Fed. Recent surges in immigration and labor force participation have raised through the break-even employment growth rate. What? Immigration and labor force participation have raised the break-even employment growth rate. Okay. Short-run break-even. Long-run break-even. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So typically, we're adding somewhere around 80,000 jobs a month. But now, because of immigration and participation rising, we're actually in this 200 range. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting point. What do we have here? Economists who produce detailed inflation forecasts expect June CPI to be relatively mild, following a lower than expected reading in May. Yeah, there's a lot of talk. A lot of banks and institutions are talking about hedging going into the CPI report. So there's some nervousness. Maybe you'll see an increase in shorts or whatever. Who knows? Who knows? Alright, well, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Search and destroy a lot of Call of Duty. Did anybody play Counter-Strike? Just like the original Counter-Strike on Xbox or PC. It was great. Zelda Ocarina of Time? I did. I was not very good at it. Personally, didn't really love it that much, but I definitely played it. That was back on... That was N64. That's before I got a GameCube. BioShock was decent. I'm not too into non-PvP, though. I don't think there was any PvP. Was there PvP in BioShock? I don't think there was. I think that was just first-person, like, linear story mode, if I remember correctly. I didn't play that much. Monica, what's the coffee mug shot? Oh, the mug shot of the day? Here you go. SQQQ calls as a hedge? Yeah, I mean... I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. You can hedge with it. The Qs are so freaking high. So I don't want to poo-poo that idea. I mean, boy, SQQQ is probably at its lowest levels, like, ever. Yeah. I mean, any short ETF is going to do this, right? And then it just needs to reverse split at some point. But yeah, it is crazy. It just keeps going down. Well, because the Qs keep going up. So, yeah, I mean... It's actually probably not a horrible idea. I'm a Democrat, and the only reason Biden won was because he wasn't Trump. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Classic games, yeah. Play Pokemon games? No. Well, I guess that's not true. I had a Game Boy... Before I had the Game Boy Color... I would play Pokemon. I wasn't very good. But I definitely would. And then obviously you had to collect cards. Okay, Mario Sunshine is underrated. I played that. I beat that game when I took my GameCube to Germany. And I remember how to get a power... Pretty sure... Did I have to get a... What did I have to get for that? Well, you gotta get the different plugs. I know that. I remember one time I had actually had an inverter. I don't know what for. I don't know if it was for that. But anyway. Yeah, no bio PvP. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, yeah, World of Warcraft's huge. RuneScape, yeah. Yeah. They're all good games. No, I never really did Guitar Hero. Lauren was into that. Lauren and like Dance Dance. She crushes on that. Oh, Borderlands is amazing. StarCraft 1, I played a lot of StarCraft 1. Little bit of 2. A lot of Age of Empires. You know that. These are cool. I like these comments here. How are you bad at Pokemon? I don't know. I just think when I was 7 years old, I didn't really know what I was doing. You should plan a Counter-Strike event in Vegas with Nerf guns. Yes, that's it. All right, let's go back to stocks here. Somebody says Nvidia's running. Time Splitters. I don't even know what that is. Sonic on Sega. Green. No, never played that. Oh, so speaking of new WoW X-Pack in August. Wait, didn't they skip last year? That's actually a big deal then, if they have a new X-Pack. Last time I played Age of Empires was like last year. But, what was I gonna say? Oh, Max. Max now, oh yeah, Nvidia is running. Max now, he'll take Violet, who's Summer's twin sister. He'll grab Violet, put her on the, you know, she's what, like 4 or 5 months old now. Put her on the couch, shove like a blanket around her so she's like captive and comfortable, and then forces her to watch Sonic with him. It's the funniest thing ever. you just walk in, they're just sitting there staring at Sonic together. Anyway, okay. So, yeah, look at that. Definitely got a little bit of an Nvidia run today here. So, Nvidia then, let's do Super Micro as well. Let's see. It's only up 1%. Where's AMD today? I feel like it's getting left behind a bit. Yeah, it is. That's crazy. Well, I closed my AMD calls right before the close yesterday, but I was a little bummed because it was like rocketing, you know, up to 180 in the post market, and I'm like, whatever. Every day is a new day, and you know, sure enough, now it's down. And then Tesla just lost like 80 bips overnight. So what it is trying to trend back up over here. So we'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of risk for Enphase long term, but I don't know personally. I want to buy some long calls on it. I haven't, and I've been saying it for a while, but it is tempting. Perfect Dark Zero, I've probably played it like once or twice, but no, a lot more GoldenEye, absolutely. I used to play that with my dad. That was pretty cool. Super Smash Brothers, yep. Oh, Red Alert was a great one. Yeah, that was great. That was really great. I played that. My favorite in Red Alert were the Tesla coils. Red Alert Tesla coils. Those were the best. Yeah, look at these. Hold on. Oh, what is this crap? Hold on. I guess I'm not logged in, so I'm getting ads. Is this gonna work? These are so great. I love those. Tanya. Zap. Oh, these were so great. Look at the graphics. Top G right here. Yeah, that's pretty sick. Anyway. A lot of risk for end phase long term. I hold 5 to 9. Oh, no, not like that. I mean in options. No. I don't think there's like actual long-term risk for end phase personally, you know, no guarantees. In fact, I think I just added to end phase yesterday, honestly. Let me see what we did. And by we, I mean me. I always have to clarify that. I don't know why I use these wrong pronouns. I'm not really into pronouns. So, what did I say? Yesterday, added a 4/10% to Ubiquity, 1.5% AMD, 1% Robinhood, 2% Trade Desk, 0.4% Embraer, and 0.4% Enphase. Yeah, that was just from, like, cash. Ooh, closed-door Democrat meeting? I want to hear about it.
Openly and ask questions about the president's future. We're not certain if the president will actually call in or not to try to lobby himself to these.
Shocked I played so many video games. I love video games. Video games are fantastic. It is a little challenging, though, with kids, though. Sometimes, like, they can really mess up kids if they have too much of them. Like, their attitudes can break. So this is a challenge. But yeah, I played a lot.
President fully 100%, but they've got members who are questioning it. Members who've openly come out and said that they don't want him on the ticket, and other members who just want some time to think it over. Listen.
Well, right now I'm continuing to listen to members and see where they are. Our members really need to continue to just see how this week plays out and see the president in unscripted situations.
It's his decision what he wants to do.
Powell talks at 7.
I will support vigorously whoever that nominee is.
So we'll see what comes.
Kevin's pronouns are we and us. Mildly concerning. No.
Leader Schumer says that he is for Joe. His vulnerable colleagues aren't on the same page, Stuart. We're talking about Senator Sherrod Brown, Martin Heinrich, John Tester. They're actually distancing themselves from the president. And Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey, who was with him over the weekend, rallying with him, isn't willing to pressure his colleagues to support him.
Yeah, whatever. All right, we'll see what happens here. But, yeah, okay, so Commodity Steve here is saying, who is producing solar panels and energy storage needed for AI and data storage in the U.S.? Question mark. What is the derivative of AI, energy? See, I actually disagree with that. And I was just looking at a piece yesterday where people are literally trying to buy, like, real estate where they think transmission lines are going to have to go for AI. Well, I think it's total bull crap. I will explain. And I will try to do so visually. And I haven't done this before, so I'm going to have to kind of figure out how to do it myself. So, forgive me. But, see, my take is the following. So, first you have the, and I don't even think this crap we have now is really, truly AI. But let's call it the, G here. You know, we'll call it the G moment. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, okay. This is going to be the graph of AI usage, and then this will be over here. This will be time. All right, cool. So there's your G moment, and then that's my take on AI usage, where it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's gotta use it, and then it kind of just like slowly fades a little bit. What you really need is you need another moment, right? So, like, at some point, you'll have the X moment. I feel like I can't say that anymore because it implies Twitter, but whatever. You know, and so at some point, you'll have some other leap forward, right? Okay, fantastic. Now, I need to plot energy use. Okay? Energy use. And then I'm going to also plot, let's do assumed energy use. So the assumed energy use by markets right now, frankly, is that. Okay? And so my take is that energy use will probably actually look much more like this. Yeah. And that pisses a lot of people off. A lot of people. See, I even went through the next X moment and think energy use will actually be lower with more AI. Oh my gosh! That's blasphemy, Kevin! How the hell could you say you're gonna have more AI and less energy? It's simple. Innovation equals efficiency. Whee! Simple example. Blackwell, 4x. What was it? Isn't it 4x the learning speed for GPTs with half the energy use? You know, something like that, right? That's just one generation. Now go multiple generations down. These chips are going to be so efficient. You're going to have so many of them. Just going to run the efficient. I just don't buy into this whole energy way. I think it's fugazi. It's just my take. It's going to be the first thing that gets innovated away is energy use. Because, you know, like energy is money, right? So energy equals money. And so the more these data centers have these things operating, the more money they're spending. And they're going to do everything to try to minimize that, of course. And so hence you're going to get innovation in the efficiency of chips. It'll ironically let us do more with less. Now, that's my take. I don't know. I hope you like my chart. Ugh. Yes. All right. Okay. So what else do you have? Debt is money. Optical chips. Optical chips are 100x faster and use no power. They're already being produced. Huh. I don't know what that is. Optical chips. Those are like optical chips. I mean, optical implies laser. Oh, what is that? Optical chips. Okay. Okay. This is all I got when I try to look at optical chips. This is what I'm getting. I don't think this is what you meant. Oh well. Alright. What else? So let's see here. Nvidia wants to keep moving. Okay. Let's see. Supermicro, AMD, coin. Okay. What is this nonsense? Let's go here. So what is this? We have Tesla, 66 bips to the downside. EOS. Oh, it wasn't this. This was like the momentum one. Oh, be careful. It started to turn red. That sucker could go down like 50% in like a minute. So just be careful. Optical chips can include components such as lasers, modulators, waveguides, photodetectors, multiplexers, all integrated onto a single substrate. Of course. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, Mr. Mean, we'll look at theta decay. That's why holding them overnight is a little rough. Alright. What about the upside? Intel. Really? It's still moving? This is crazy. Let's look at the fibs on Intel. I might redraw these. Because this is going back to the peak in early 21. But this is not very useful. I mean, that gap's useful. That was useful over here. That was useful. But it's just not over here. It might be worth drawing a new set. So, here, we'll draw them in, like, yellow or something. It's already 4 minutes to the bell. What happened? Just having too much fun. Oh, come on. There we go. Alright. Let's see what that looks like. 29.73 and 50.92. Oh, yeah. Let's try yellow. I don't like to, I don't know. I'm gonna have to delete one of those. That is way too messy for me, but we'll see. I'll just leave it there for a moment. Yeah, video game talks. Fine. Yeah. Somebody says, Tesla crashing. I love it when I hear that. It's probably because it's like it moves like 5 basis points. Yeah. The pre-market version of crashing is generally pretty nominal. Alright, alright. Yeah, alright, so what are the movers today? Oh, let's write this down. We got like 3 minutes to go before L markets open. Let's write some things down. Shall we? Okay. Up and down. Mita. Alright, that's gonna piss some people off. Nvidia. Super Microcomputer. Intel Corporation. You gotta watch AMD and Tesla here. Enphase giving back a little bit. I don't know what else is moving today. Oh, 1 minute. We got about 1 minute to go. What is this crap? Where'd all the time go? How am I supposed to be prepared? Ay, ay, ay. Alright. Let's get this show on the road, I guess. Yeah, stock market. Bitcoin 57.2, and then we're Q's today. All right. Q's falling a little bit going into the open there. So's Tesla. Huh. All right. It's gonna be a little mixed open. It looks like. ARM wants to go up. Costs trying to go down. Apple trying to go. Look at that. Apple's almost 230. It's crazy. All right. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun.
It is Genworth Financial celebrating its 20th listing anniversary at the NASDAQ. It's winners of the annual Chicago Innovation Award. As we will once again, Jim, tried again with a stone's throw of 5,600.
All right, tried starting there with a big green candle on Tesla. Tesla's trying to bounce off the 151 level. Makes sense. Probably, if it can actually hold it up, I think it's going to try to go to 258 again today. But I don't know if it's going to hold it today. We'll see what happens. AMD goes positive here. Oh, red candle on Tesla. Green candle on NVIDIA. Tesla down almost 1%. Holy moly, the Qs are trying to red candle as well. AMD goes, it's a little red right now. All over the place there on Tesla. It does not know which way it wants to go. Oh boy. NVIDIA wants to try to push. Up on the Amazon, you've got AMSys. Where are the movers? Where are the movers? Where are the movers? The share. Oh, Intel just gave up a little bit. Really, NVIDIA's moving. Supermicro wants to move. Solar Edge. Enphase down about $1.20. Tesla now only about 73 bips right there. And flip the script a little bit. NVIDIA, 215. There's Embraer. Nice, nice. Supermicro. Oh, red candle, red candle. Everybody's nervous about Powell. Freaking out about J Powell. Oh, no, oh, no. Oh, what's J Powell going to say? Oh, no, he's going to rug us again. Oh, there's the green on Tesla out of nowhere. Here it comes. It's coming. Yeah, pick a direction on this crap. Jeez. It's almost like, I think you just have to wait for J-Pow is what it feels like. This is very interesting. Oh, nope. NVIDIA just wants to keep going. Don't tell NVIDIA to wait for J-Pow. NVIDIA's like, no thanks. We are J-Pow. Papa Powell. Oh, yeah, that's like what Palantir's doing. Yesterday, I made some money off Palantir, too. I had $28 calls on that puppy yesterday. Oh, yeah, look at that NVIDIA move. Oh, juiced. All right, let's listen in over here for a moment.
But it's 12 times earnings. We have to find more stocks that are doing really well that deserve higher multiples.
Although I'm glad you mentioned the banks, because Reuters does have this piece on the GSIB surcharge, maybe a little more favorable, set the plate for some more capital returns. Then you got the Piper upgrade of BAC. Back to neutral.
That was so significant, Carl. I'm so glad you mentioned it because that stock had been the laggard in the group. And I'm now beginning to think that that's the second upgrade that I've seen, that people are no longer worried about their bond portfolio. Remember, people felt that they had the wrong duration. But now you've got a stock that sells it that has a higher PE than JP Morgan, David.
Oh, Tesla's almost green. It's almost green. Don't pay my hand. No! Yes!
Gain the lead.
Wow, what a joke. Look at this market. It just fakes you out. Oh, wow, it's just all going green now. Oh, yeah, baby. Nobody knows green like I do.
Today that M&A kind of has a mixed record when administrations change. I think it's more about macro than policy.
It is. I do think that we're never going to change the rule. Look, with so many banks merged during 2008, it got us to like JP Morgan's above 10%. We're kind of done with mergers, but
about the biggest, but we still need a wave of consolidation,
just to be
potentially
like
at the next level. And Carl, that may very well be correct in terms of macro, but I will tell you, there are a lot of people in the M&A world who are
salivating.
Yes, at the prospect of a Trump presidency, even if they don't vote for him, frankly, many of them still say, well, it's going to be beneficial to my business because there is a belief that the regulatory breaks that have certainly been one of the key points of the Biden administration. We talked about Lena Khan, I don't know how many times over the last 3.5 years, are going to change significantly if, in fact, Donald Trump regains the presidency.
I've heard that about energy, but I've also heard that they would probably keep some things in place when it comes to tech. Jim?
Okay, I still think that there is a populist strain in tech. Remember, they brought lawsuits against some big tech. They brought a lawsuit against Google.
They did, and then there may be one-offs that don't make sense.
Everyone's suing everyone.
Warner. Like, why did AT&T Time Warner get a lawsuit when it didn't seem to?
And it was the Democrats.
And obviously it took 18 plus months, or more than that, 2 years, and it did get approved. So there will be one-offs. But generally, I think there is a belief that you're going to have, broadly speaking, a much more gentle hand on antitrust if, in fact, Donald Trump regains the presidency.
Well, it's interesting. What's the biggest gainer today? And it has to be WestRock. Now, that Smurf at WestRock.
Well, that was yesterday.
How'd that deal get through?
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know. My father sold corrugated book box. That's like the worst business in the world. So maybe people said, the hell with it. Let them merge.
Decent business now, isn't it? No? Cardboard? The world's needs
Yeah, well, they let
cardboard,
everybody
man.
merge. It's like industrial gases, Dave. If you let everybody merge, you know what? You can just make a ton of money. That's why that we have rules.
And yet we let everybody merge in the airline industry, and it's still not clear to me. They make a ton of money, but when you go to Europe, you know what you pay for airline tickets? They're like $40.
You can't
I mean, you got to stand, but still.
I get points. I go with my points.
You go anywhere in Europe for like $60. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. No, but none of the kids buy your rail passes anymore.
No?
No, not like we did.
Well, there you go.
They can just fly everywhere on Ryanair.
Yeah, well, I had Europass. I love that. David, we don't... Oh, look,
sorry.
Here we go. We don't stop with... Now we're in the component makers of companies that are somewhat tangentially related to AI.
Okay.
That's what we have today.
What is that? What name would that be?
Okay, how about Cirrus Logic?
Okay.
Okay. I mean, there you go. Cirrus Logic up 5 on 41,000 shares.
Boring. All right, what do we got over here? Tesla's moving. AMD just had a few red candles after running. Tesla's really the runner right now. That's pretty nice. You've got the Qs, 42 bips. Supermicro slowed down, although it's coming back. Nvidia is kind of barcoding a little bit. I think Tesla really needs to push to the 258 right here. Let's see here. Yes, the Tesla call options. I would like some more printing. Okay. Amazon. Okay, so we got J Powell coming up soon here, actually, in like 20 minutes. There's got to be a way to change the stupid title on X Studio, Twitter. I don't think there is, but there really should be, because then what I could do is I could just change the frickin' title. But I don't think I can. So edit in live cut. No, that's stupid. I don't want to edit in live cut. I just want to change the title. Stupid. Periscope. Yeah, no, doesn't let you edit it. It just blocks it out. How dumb is that? All right, well, whatever. All right, so, okay. Let's see what's happening here. Tesla's rotating down a little bit. So is AMD. A little bit of red there. And we've got J Powell testifies in about 22 minutes. So I think what we'll do is we'll modify... Ooh, some nice red candles there. We'll modify some of these titles. And what we'll do is we'll say... Jerome Powell testifies. Congress, and there we go. Save. All right, so YouTube's updated. I don't, you know, whatever. I might just leave. I don't really want to restart Twitter, so I might just leave it. Yeah, we'll just leave it. Although. No, I'm gonna restart X. I'll restart X. Give me a sec here. We'll listen to Jimbo for just a moment here, and then I'll restart X. Palantir 2%. Nice move there, Palantir.
Hope Crosby. Remember the Hope Crosby Paramount pictures?
They were fun on the road.
When I lived in my car in California, I tried to park near the gate.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I just
was it safer there?
Yeah, they rousted me immediately and sent me to under Interstate 5, which was awful.
David Ellison will be running this company. A lot of coverage in a lot of major publications and the like of Mr. Ellison, who will be taking over as the company's chairman and CEO when the deal that we went through in detail yesterday is completed. You know, perhaps it'll be sooner than some think. Some believe it'll be a year, but there's really not that much regulatory to get through here. It's not like there are any stations being combined, so the FCC role here, you know, there's no...
Okay, if you're on X, just refresh my page and come right back. The stream will be back up in, like, I don't know, 20 seconds. For those of you on X. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, you're good. Okay. Boom. There we go. It's just the way it works, I guess. All right, we'll write this here. Jerome Powell testifies at 7 a.m. Put that little banner there. Okay, AMD just puked a little bit. That's kind of funny and bad. Yeah, take a look at this. You got a little bit of vomit there over at AMD. And Tesla, looks like you want to keep moving here. So Nike, yeah, Nike's got a little bit of a run here. You're right. That's really interesting. Nike, the Qs are going down. Some of this might just be in anticipation of Powell, honestly. Yeah, Nike's getting a little bit of a red candle now. Zoom out. Look at that Nike position, though. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this just in terms of the competition. But in terms of, like, expecting some kind of technical bounce here, be interesting to see if that trend can continue. Yeah, it looks like the chipset... Well, NVIDIA keeps pushing. You know, AMD and Supermicro gave up a bit, which I think is a great opportunity for building some longs out on AMD. Well, longer positions. I really like AMD from a longer point of view. Like not like 1 or 2 weeks, like I think a month or so. I think this could move pretty nicely. But we'll see. Right now it's on a little bit of a downtrend, so I don't think there's a rush. Supermicro. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of nervousness around Powell. Oh, Tesla doesn't think there's a reason to be nervous. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. This Tesla call option I have moves by like $20,000 increments in like a minute. That was pretty wild. Anywho, yeah, look at this. Here we go. We're going to go to 258. Okay, listen. The 258 test is a big deal because once you hit 258, once you get to 258, that's... I honestly don't think the sell order book is that extreme there. I think the sell order book is pretty relaxed at 258. And we cleared a lot of it yesterday. Once you actually clean that up, you plow right there. Why is it rejecting off my mouse? You plow right up to 295. That's just been my take. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, I'm excited to trade J-Pow, honestly. That I think will be very entertainment guaranteed. So we'll see. We will see. Look at it. It's like I had my mouse there, and it's rejecting off of it. It's the mouse rejection line. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway. Sorry. I ruined it. I ruined the Tesla. No! I ruined the Tesla run. All right. Let's listen in here.
Norwegian all at the winners list today.
Look, Disney's trying to opt for fun, from what I can tell, and so far it has not worked. The stock just keeps going down. It's been a nightmare. David, I come to you and say, when is this resolution with how much Disney will pay the stock that you just mentioned?
Wait, I'm sorry, I lost you. What did you just ask me? Yeah, Hulu, that's still in play. I don't, frankly, I don't have an update.
Why isn't there some urgency?
But it's going to be a big number, potentially. Well, you know, the variance may not be as large, and we'll see what the number is. But
it's RBC that's doing it?
They're the third party.
So what? Yeah. Why can't they just say, okay, listen, guys, it's going to be X? I mean, what is there?
Well, you've got. I mean, it's each side has its own valuation. Then you go to the third party. Comcast will claim and say that under the contract it has to be evaluated as though it was an auction scenario for Hulu, so that even companies that are obviously not a part of bidding for it would be considered to do so, and so a price has to reflect that scenario. Disney will say otherwise.
But Disney stock, the actual earnings numbers have been going up because the movies have been better.
Yeah,
and yet the stock goes down, and I'm wondering. That's why I mentioned the Hulu. Because I said maybe that's the problem.
Maybe it is. Maybe there's a belief the liability is going to be a bit higher than people anticipate.
Hugh Johnson's got to come forward and talk about the synergies, things that are happening.
The synergies. What synergies?
Well, there's some of the.
All right, whatever. So anyway, yeah, I think that the thing today is you're gonna have some, like, I don't think we can really anticipate sort of the Nvidia skyrocketing movement until Jay Powell's done yapping. It's just too much enthusiasm. I should say too much enthusiasm for Nvidia, but too much concern around everything else. Let me clarify that statement. This is crazy. Like, the Nvidia run, holy smokers. It just doesn't care right now. So, yeah, Jay Powell speaks in like 14 minutes. 7 a.m. Pacific. All y'all East Coasters stuck watching Jay Powell at 10 a.m. Getting to wake up at 8 a.m. for the market bell at 9:30. I'm not bitter that I have to wake up at 5:30. Or it's even earlier than that. All right. So, what do we really expect from Jay Powell today? I mean, just the risks are better balanced. Let's make a bingo card. Make a bingo card for Jay Powell, okay? Hold on. Let me see if I get in trouble again on TikTok. Let's see if I could do this. So yesterday, I turned on TikTok, but then they're like, you played Jim Cramer. We disabled your live. Like, shut up. Jerome Powell testifies. I'm gonna use a whole separate computer for this. What is this crap? There. Alright. Not gonna work? I don't know. Let's see. It's kind of cool. I will give him credit that the TikTok live stream studio thingy, it lets me do two versions, a vertical version and a horizontal version. It's kind of cool, actually. I give him credit on that. All right. So anyway, so Jay Powell will be testifying at 7 a.m. And let's make a bingo card for what we think Jay Powell is going to say today. So Jerome Powell, we'll go ahead and we'll start with some lines here. And this doesn't have to be perfect. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So we will write down Jerome testifies. That'll be our freebie. So then I think we need risks are better balanced. We definitely need this one.
Data dependent.
Dependent. Data dependent.
Nice PP.
No, I don't think he's going to say that.
The Nike swoosh.
No, I don't think he's going to say that either. How about Jerome Powell? Okay, he testifies risks are better balanced, data dependent. Mentions. No, I don't. I'm going to say does not mention recession. That obviously, he might be asked about it, but let's go with does not mention. Let's see here. Robust. I like that. Okay. Economy has been robust or resilient. Okay. How about Nick T sits next to Blondie? Wrong meeting. Okay. Banking system sound. Okay, I like that. Sound or resilient banking system. Oh, yeah. The Fed is not political. Fed is not political. This is like almost a guaranteed. I'm going to put it here. Is asked about Basel III. Wait, ready for this? Is asked about Basel III at least 5 times. I'm so tired of hearing that every time he testifies. It's the most exhausting thing ever. Let's see here. Bank failures, close the effing door. Data dependent. I like that one.
Data dependent.
Oh, yeah, purple tie. That's a good idea. Purple tie. Okay. Real estate. Oh, is asked about being fired. I like that. Is asked about being fired. Yes. Good questions. I like it. Let's see what other questions we have here. What do we think? So Jay Powell, again, he testifies in about 9 minutes. Let's see here. All streaming bases covered. Yep, I see you there on TikTok. Okay. The voice is hilarious. Yeah, you like it? I like the sad ones. These are my favorite.
Reamed. Double reamed. Triple reamed. Selling spree. Reamed. Poopy doopy.
Or we even have this one. Tell me, what about this one?
Your boy Kevin just lost lots of money.
Yes. Not my job. I like that. Okay. Not my job. That's a good one. Yeah. Dual mandate. I'll take that. It's similar to risks are better balanced, but I'll say dual mandate because he could open with that. Yeah, we have 8 minutes to go. Tesla's up about 1%. Nvidia's slowing down a little bit. AMD is like choking. It's like it took a big pill and it just can't swallow it. But I really want to, it's okay for me. I really want to pick up like some August calls cheap. And so I'll take a little bit of pain, especially right before JPOW. Project 25. Ooh, mentions cutting rates. I'll say says ease monetary policy. Okay, then what we should do is we should have some fun stuff. Like I'll say does not suggest when it'll be appropriate to cut. Just that it will be. Okay, so no. I'll also say no hint of July cut. Inflation data better than expected. Hope it continues. Okay. Let's see here. So you're going to be like, well, by default, because it's in Congress, it's almost certain he's not going to be on time. Delinquency of the BNPL. BNPL. That's okay. All right, we'll put that over here. BNPL and household credit risk rising. Like something to that effect. That would be interesting. Okay. What else? Deflation. Yeah. Okay. It's not a bad idea. Some talk of deflation. All right. Not a bad idea. Let's see here. Okay. What else? Project 25. I don't think that's going to come up. What else? It's actually crazy I came across your live. You certainly. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for mentioning that. Somebody writes, Kamala becomes president. That would, I don't know where to put that on the bingo card. That's a different kind of bingo card. Debt ceiling. Oh yeah, the sustainability of debt, of U.S. debt. Fiscal debt not sustainable. That's a good one. Yep, we could do that. Tools in our tool belt. Yes. References tool belt. Okay, I like that. Yeah, this is a good one. I agree.
Poopy doopy.
Unemployment. Yeah. SOM rule. What about that? So I'll say SOM rule or references to rising unemployment. SOM rule or suggestion, unemployment rising equals recession. Asked about. I'll say asked about. He's not going to mention these things. Okay. What else? I'm cutting rates right now. Yeah. Supply chain issues. Ooh, that's a good one. Clear, sir. Base solid. Yeah, Tesla's up 130. Soft landing. Yeah, I like that. And supply chains, better balance, and then soft landing, good chance, not confirmed though. And then how about won't declare victory basically just yet, right? So, okay. All right. We got our bingo card. Let's see what's going on in the sticks. Okay, good. So you got a little bit of a discount on an opportunity to buy AM Dizzle here. Yeah. I still think August is where you go. You gotta give it a little bit of love, a little bit of time. It's a grower, not a shower. AMD. Nvidia, on the other hand, just goes to the moon. This one you just buy Friday calls on. You don't need time for that one. That one's just like, here I am. All right. Tesla, come on, baby. 258. That's the number we got to go to. You got to break 258. Now, yesterday we rejected 258 with a false breakout. So we'll have to watch that. And phase down right now. And we're about 3 minutes away from supposedly the testimony beginning. Wow, ChargePoint, SolarEdge. These guys all down right now. So the energy sector's down. Enphase is trying to recover right now, actually. And then is Nike still running, I wonder? The Nike swoot. No, it's not. So Nike stopped. And we're just waiting on Tesla. Tesla the Esla. All right. We are now moments away from the stream beginning. Uh-oh. Here goes Tesla. I wonder if it'll bounce on my mouse. Oh, did Apple just go green? Take a look at that. I think there'll be plenty of buying opportunities during Powell's discussion. Oh, yeah, Apple did just go green. Boopy doopy. All right. So, yeah, here we go. We are now, what do we got? About a minute away from the congressional testimony beginning. And we shall see how the day advances. So, it shall be very entertaining. Entertainment guaranteed. All right. Nope, still waiting for that all to begin. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. All right, let's listen in.
Squawk on the Street. I'm Sarah Eisen with Carl Quintanilla and David.
Hey, Sarah's going to help cover. Great. So we really need the Fed testimony. There it is. Oh, they're getting pretty close. There's like nobody there to ask questions, though. Let's see here. Let's go with the Federal Reserve. Okay, Fed. Oh, wow. There's a Fed live stream right now. Look how boring this looks.
What we find is that if you have low credit scores, and if you can get access to credit from this platform's underwriting algorithm,
Boy, that looks pretty boring. So anyway, waiting now for Powell to come out for his testimony. Ooh, Tesla, 257. Here we go. Here we go. Here it comes, baby. Get ready. Oh, is he actually starting on time?
We'll tell the
his statement's out.
And Urban Affairs that the labor conditions have cooled while remaining strong. Most recent inflation readings, he says, have shown modest further progress. And he calls monetary policy restrictive and says restrictive monetary policy is putting downward pressure on inflation. The committee, however, still seeking greater confidence inflation is declining before reducing rates. He quotes that part of the statement which says that. Then he uses the phrase, more good data, he says, would strengthen our confidence that inflation is heading towards it. And he's really referring back to the most recent inflation reports we've had. Elevated inflation, he says, is not the only risk we face. So he's talking much more two-sidedly about the risk. And he goes on to cite the risk.
Yeah, let me quickly just read that off. Elevated inflation is not the only risk we face. In other words, and then he says, more good data would strengthen our confidence on inflation. Continue to make decisions meeting by meeting. Inflation remains above 2% goal. Risks to achieving employment inflation goals are becoming into better balance. Reducing restraint too soon could reverse inflation progress. Too late could unduly weaken the economy. We'll carefully assess incoming data. This sounds like, frankly, a very canned speech right now. So as the testimony begins, I think, yeah, we're starting to see some of that sort of the red candle sticking as the testimony begins. Not uncommon. And now it's just a matter of waiting for good old Jay Powell to come out. So we are on standby for that. We will wait. We will wait for Jerome Powell. He's getting close, but he is not out yet. All right. Let's listen to what Sarah's saying here.
I would say a nuance on the labor market. I would say in terms of the labor market cooling, but still strong. He's picking up on the recent employment report. Maybe a little bit.
He'll probably be asked about that too, so we'll get to see what happens there.
Step in Portugal, maybe this is another step.
Where Tesla's waking back up as well. See that right here, Tesla waking back up. Nvidia continues to wake up. The Qs are actually moving up right now. AMD's starting to move up right now. Supermicro's trying to wake up. Palantir really gave up on its run. So did Nike. What about Intel? Where's Intel sitting today? Oh, J-Pow's sitting there. Oh, yeah, Intel's starting to bleed a bit here. So kind of boring on Intel. Boring. All right. Fine then. So let's continue to see what's happening, I guess. We're almost ready to begin. Look at all these people trying to take pictures of good old Jay Powell. All them happy individuals getting their photos. All right. Come on, Tesla. What is this? What is this nonsense? There's one way to go, and one way only. Please get to it. What is this but great nonsense? Great nonsense. All right, here we go. We're getting started.
Inflation is not the only risk we face.
All right.
Kind of elevates the concern.
All right, stop talking, Steve Leisman.
To a slightly higher level.
Yeah, that dual risk with that it's coming into focus. Steve, thank you very much. We'll continue to check in with you throughout the morning as we hear from the Fed chair in just a few minutes, taking questions from members of Congress, guys, which, you know, is pretty much the message.
Okay.
Fundamentally, it's not a fair playing field. Instead, we have a David and Goliath economy where the largest corporations use their power to funnel all the gains in the economy. Try to hide it anymore. The biggest corporations are charging more for less. Americans are frustrated. No, actually, Americans are pissed off. They have fewer and fewer choices. Those choices cost more and more. Keeping prices down is part of the Fed's mandate, But as many of us have made clear, the Fed's main tool to combat inflation,
I don't think keeping prices down is part of the mandate. Stable prices is part of the mandate.
Corporate greed. Keeping rates too high for too long threatens workers' paychecks while keeping other costs high, particularly housing costs. Housing prices and rents continue to go up. It's no surprise that since the Fed began raising rates, the amount of income families need to qualify for a mortgage has nearly doubled. Homeownership has long been a bedrock of our middle class, but today fewer and fewer middle class families can afford to buy a home.
Let me get rid of that cursor, please.
Our country's housing supply shortage, worse, not better. We need more housing construction of all types. Higher rates lead to the opposite, and particularly make it harder for multifamily construction to work financially. Higher interest rates make borrowing more expensive for working families, whether it's for a mortgage or a car or anything else. Most people don't have the luxury of paying for everything in cash. And for the millions of Americans feeling their budgets stretched by higher prices, taking on credit card debt to pay for groceries and other essentials has become an option of last resort. But as more people struggle to pay down their debts, credit card interest rates are reaching all-time highs. Last month, Director Chopra testified in front of this committee and explicitly stated that credit card issuers are charging higher rates far beyond what they need to cover their costs. Corporate greed rearing its head again. Banks are making record profits at the expense of Americans. Every month that the Fed keeps rates high, Mr. Chair, it costs Americans money by making it more expensive to buy a house and to borrow money. Higher borrowing costs stifle future economic growth, leading to fewer homes being built, leading to businesses making fewer investments in the economy, and eventually...
Okay, we're getting the red candles, so if you want to get ready to swing trade, all right, you're getting the red candles. This is all because of Fed uncertainty. Jay Powell hasn't started moving his mouth yet. This is a good opportunity. Just pay attention to it.
Corporations accountable and will continue to do that. For instance, we fought to cap insulin prices for senior citizens. We'll continue to fight to extend this price cap on life-saving drugs for all Americans. And why my colleagues and I on this committee are working, it's why we're working to lower housing costs for more Americans. The Fed also continues its work to keep the banking system stable and ensure consumers' money is safe. Last year, the Fed and other bank regulators issued a proposal to update bank capital requirements, strong capital standards, and you've heard in this committee overwhelming support for strong capital standards. They're critical for the economy. It's our way of making sure that if Wall Street bets go poorly, which they often do, investors, executives, and shareholders should pay for it, not taxpayers. The biggest banks have spent obscene amounts of money attacking this Fed proposal. But you, the Fed, don't work for big banks. You work for the American people. Your concern should be developing capital rules that protect Americans' money, not protect bank CEOs' stock portfolios. The Fed needs to look past these shameless lobbying efforts and finalize a rule in the best interest of taxpayers. Another dangerous piece of the Wall Street business model that makes our banking system less safe is incentive-based compensation. This compensation model rewards risky behavior that enriches Wall Street executives in the short term, but makes banks more likely to fail. We saw the results of that model in 2008. We saw it again last year with the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature. Other regulators have moved forward with a proposal to rein in these reckless incentives, but the rule, Mr. Chair, can't move forward without your and the Fed's moving on it. This rule is long overdue. The Fed must join this statutorily required effort as soon as possible. The Fed also has the important job of reviewing mergers and acquisitions between and among banks. Over the last several decades, we've seen the largest banks grow into massive literally trillion-dollar companies, while thousands of small banks in rural communities in Northwest and Southeast Ohio, in small towns in those communities, in those areas, and all across America have disappeared. Consumers have lost trusted local banks. Small businesses have lost longtime reliable banking partners. Regulators like the Fed have the crucial job of guarding against mergers that reduce or eliminate competition and lead to bank closures or layoffs. I recently sent comment letters to the OCC and the FDIC on their current efforts. I expect the Fed to take the proper steps to ensure that its merger review process is robust and that it protects consumers and communities. Finally, Mr. Chair, you must ensure the Fed has high ethical standards. Fed officials should never again be able to profit from their positions by using confidential plans about Fed.
This is so boring so far. No wonder Sarah Eisen isn't covering this at all.
At least in the near term.
Fails to establish the clear penalties needed for Federal Reserve officials who make investments in violation of the public trust. A rule with no consequences is really not much of a rule at all. The American people need to be able to trust that the Federal Reserve works for them in a time of deep cynicism that people have about the federal government overall. The American people need to know that officials aren't abusing their positions for personal gain. As chair, you have an important role to play to make sure our economy works for everyone, not just for Wall Street. The Fed's regional banks must do their part to hear from people and other stakeholders in their 12 districts to understand their needs. I look forward to hearing today how the Fed will balance its dual mandate, how it will protect Americans' money, how it will foster an economy that upholds the dignity of work. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chair Powell, for being with us this morning. Welcome back. Joe Biden broke this economy.
Oh, man, more intro statements. Come on.
That's the bottom line. I want to start with the end in mind. Joe Biden broke our economy, and it is very difficult for anyone to fix it. Everyday families are struggling to put food on the table. Real wage growth is being eaten away by rising prices and runaway inflation. Think about the fact that for 52 consecutive weeks under Joe Biden, wages were eclipsed by inflation for 52 consecutive paychecks. I remember back in December 2020, in South Carolina, gas was $1.99 per gallon. Today, it's still $3.19 per gallon, a 50% increase in just a few years. So it's devastating to the average American family, particularly families like the one I grew up in, a single-parent household mired in poverty, when you see your gas prices up 50%, your food up 30%, your cost of keeping your house cool or warm up 25%. It's not a challenge. It's not unfortunate. It's an absolute crisis. And too many households in America today are living paycheck to paycheck, and they fear the challenges that are coming our way, the headwinds brought to us by the Biden administration. Those headwinds, of course, are seen through the prism of inflation. Inflation hasn't been this high since the Jimmy Carter years, and that devastation is being felt and measured in households by too much month at the end of the money. And that devastation is real for the vast majority of Americans. And the pointing finger, I tell you what, whether it's the Biden administration throwing the Fed under the bus or any other way they can deflect from the real problem. I've seen it, committee hearing after committee hearing after committee hearing. My friends on the left want to point their fingers at anyone other than the real culprits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The progressive wish list, spending projects, and out-of-control regulations of this administration continues to eat away at American paychecks. And they continue to blame, whether it's shrinkflation, greedflation, skimpflation. They're looking for someone to blame except for Bidenflation. The devastation of Joe Biden's economic policy continues to impact everyday Americans. The American people see through the facades, and they want real solutions. It doesn't take a PhD economist to understand what the average American is experiencing under this administration. When President Biden and my Democratic colleagues pump trillions of dollars into our economy, those dollars increase the demand and pushes prices higher. It's that simple. The American people see and feel it every single time. And they see it, as I said earlier, the grocery stores, the gas stations, at the doctor's office. It's just undeniable the impact that this is happening. Just last week, we celebrated the birth of our country.
This is so boring. Please get to Powell. This is trash. These opening statements. I hate Congress.
Expensive July 4th on record, with a cookout this year costing, on average, 30% more than it did just a few years ago. I call that hogwash. What's worse is that this administration doesn't want to learn a lesson in economics. Instead of reducing the push for more spending and more regulation, they only simply double down. Let's take, for example, the tens of billions of dollars of student loan forgiveness. Constant new plans to forgive more money, regardless of the constitutionality of their decisions. So it's important to ask, who are these billions of dollars of forgiveness actually benefiting? Well, the answer is simple. This forgiveness scheme will result in debt relief for 750,000 individuals from households with an average income of $300,000 or more. And just don't forget the fact that the average American family has a household income around $74,000. So what we're doing with this unconstitutional student loan forgiveness is actually asking the median household of $74,000 per household to bear the burden of forgiving debt for students who live in households of over $300,000. And the actual cost of this, somewhere between $870 and $1 billion and $1.4 trillion. So why do I have to even ask the question? Why do we continue to punish American families struggling paycheck to paycheck with a new scheme to relieve households over $300,000 of student loan debt? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Politics. It's one way to buy vote after vote after vote for November's.
Yeah, we all know this already. Now ask the tough question. Yo, J. Powell, when you cutting rates, dog?
Words outlining the Fed's work to cool inflation. I think it's past time we all recognize what is truly going on. Political pandering from the left. I strongly believe that our economy cannot handle any more of this wasteful spending. And if you disagree, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But it's not just spending policies that stifle growth, it's also overregulation. And I can't think of a better example of overregulation than parking more capital on the sidelines through Basel III endgame. That proposal itself would cost millions of Americans their chance to own a home, start a small business, and have access to the credit. And
I told you, this is all going to be about Basel III and not about rate cuts, in which case the market's just going to go up.
This hearing today on C-SPAN, Basel III capital requirements are like taking your star quarterback, Dak Prescott, and telling him to sit on the sidelines because he just might get injured during the season. It's just plain ridiculous. But these proposed capital requirements would just do that, forcing more money to the sidelines of the greatest economy on the planet and out of the hands of first-time home buyers, business owners, and folks trying to achieve the American dream. The stakes are high.
258 on Tesla. Here we go. This is the test, baby.
You've heard me say this a number of times, but it bears repeating. We need transparency in your rulemaking process, as this normal proposal lacks any form of clear justification. Chairman Powell, it is essential that you, your fellow governors, and the other agencies join in this rulemaking, follow the law, do the homework, and then let the public check the work. And that's why I believe that it is absolutely necessary to have a complete re-proposal of Basel III endgame. Give the stakeholders an opportunity to take a look at it and then recalibrate what is necessary going forward. Any increases in capital that are not quantitatively justified harm the American people who need it most. Our farmers, home buyers, small business owners need and deserve access to credit. Therefore, I'll repeat it one more time. You need to restore confidence in this rulemaking process, pull the existing proposal, and have a complete restart. And then, when the data has been analyzed and is available for the public scrutiny, reissue an appropriate proposed rule following the requirements of the APA. I look forward to your opening statement and having a chance to have a conversation afterwards.
Thanks, Senator Scott. Mr. Chair, welcome. Thank you for your service and for your testimony today. Please proceed.
Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Scott, and other members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present the Federal Reserve's semi-annual monetary policy report.
Boring.
The Federal Reserve remains squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Over the past 2 years, the economy has made considerable progress toward the Fed's 2% inflation goal, and labor market conditions have cooled while remaining strong. Reflecting these developments, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are coming into better balance. I will review the current economic situation before turning to monetary policy. Recent indicators suggest that the U.S. economy continues to expand at a solid pace. Gross domestic product growth appears to have moderated in the first half of this year, following impressive strength in the second half of last year. Private domestic demand remains robust, however, with slower but still solid increases in consumer spending. We have also seen moderate growth in capital spending and a pickup in residential investment so far this year. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. In the labor market, a broad set of indicators suggests that conditions have returned to about where they stood on the eve of the pandemic, strong but not overheated. The unemployment rate has moved higher, but was still at a low level of 4.1% in June. Payroll gains averaged 222,000 per month in the first half of the year. Strong job creation over the past couple of years has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers, reflecting increases in labor force participation among individuals aged 25 to 54, so-called workers in their prime working years, and a strong pace of immigration. As a result, the jobs-to-workers gap is well down from its peak and now stands just a bit above its 2019 pre-pandemic level. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year. The strong labor market has helped narrow long-standing disparities in employment and earnings across demographic groups. Inflation has eased notably over the past couple of years, but remains above the Federal Open Market Committee's longer-run goal of 2%. Total personal consumption expenditures prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in May. Core PCE prices, which exclude the volatile food and energy categories, also increased 2.6%. After a lack of progress toward our 2% inflation objective in the early part of this year, the most recent monthly readings have shown modest further progress. Longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. In support of these goals, the committee has maintained the target range for the federal funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5% since last July, after having tightened the stance of monetary policy significantly over the previous year and a half. We've also continued to reduce our securities holdings. At our May meeting, we decided to slow the pace of balance sheet runoff starting in June, consistent with the plans released previously. A restrictive monetary policy stance is helping to bring demand and supply conditions into better balance and to put downward pressure on inflation. The committee has stated that we do not expect it will be appropriate to reduce the target range for the federal funds rate until we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. Incoming data for the first quarter of this year did not support such greater confidence, The most recent inflation readings, however, have shown some modest further progress, and more good data would strengthen our confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. We continue to make decisions meeting by meeting. We know that reducing policy restraint too soon or too much could stall or even reverse the progress that we've seen on inflation. At the same time, in light of the progress we've made both in lowering inflation and in cooling the labor market over the past 2 years, elevated inflation is not the only risk we face. Reducing policy restraint too late or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will continue its practice of carefully assessing incoming data and their implications for the evolving outlook, the balance of risks, and the appropriate path of monetary policy. Congress has entrusted the Federal Reserve with operational independence that is needed to take a longer-term perspective in the pursuit of our dual mandate of maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Restoring price stability is essential to achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the long run. Our success in delivering on those goals matters to all Americans. I'll conclude by emphasizing that we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the senior member of the committee will begin the questioning. Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Former President Trump has indicated that he would propose, if elected, a substantial increase in tariffs of between 10 and 60%, and by doing thus, eliminate the federal income tax. First, on the question of what would be the impact of tariff increases on prices, consumers, and the economy?
Thank you, Senator Reid. So I'm going to say that we go very far out of our way not to comment on campaign-type information. We just don't do that. We also don't comment on trade policy. We have really specific and important jobs, and we try to stick to those.
Well, I'm glad I allowed you to establish that principle up front, Mr. Chairman. But let me opine a bit. 10% increases in tariffs is going to have an effect on prices in the shop aisle. It's going to increase them because they'll be passed on likely. 60% tariff increases are significant. And in fact, I've been told that to replace the income tax, you would have to raise tariffs across the board 70% to make up for the loss of the income tax, which would, I think, create huge economic problems. I respect your impartiality and your neutrality, but the numbers don't seem to add up to anything that would help the country. Let me switch to something else that might be more within your line of response. You said in your opening statement that the labor markets appear to be in a better balance. And that's one of the key factors to judge whether interest rates can be raised. I must say I'm concerned a bit that we're not on a very faster track to decreasing interest rates from the Fed, and because of the better balance you cite. Could you comment on that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure. So the most recent labor market data do send, to your point, a pretty clear signal that labor market conditions have cooled considerably compared to where they were 2 years ago. This is no longer an overheated economy. This is an economy, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that is more or less back by most measures to where it was before the pandemic. And that was a strong labor market, but it was not an overheated labor market. So I think the upshot of that really is that we're well aware that we now face two-sided risks and have for some time. But now the labor market appears to be fully back in balance. We know that if we move too quickly, we risk unnecessarily hampering economic activity and possibly interfering with the ongoing expansion. We know that if we move too slowly, that we may undo the good we've done. Well, actually, it's the other way. If we loosen policy too late or too little, we could hurt economic activity. If we loosen policy too much or too soon, then we could undermine the progress on inflation. So we're very much balancing those two risks, and that's really the essence of what we're thinking about these days.
But the direction seems to be going towards lowering interest rates at some point, we would hope. That might be a wish rather than a direction.
Well, I think if you look at the last summary of economic projections, I guess I would say it this way. It doesn't seem likely that the next policy move would be a rate increase. We don't take things like that off the table, but that does not seem the likely direction. The likely direction does seem to be as we make more progress in inflation and as the labor market remains strong, we begin to loosen policy at the right moment.
Thank you. Just 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court handed down 2 decisions that impact every federal regulatory agency, including the Federal Reserve. They overturned the Chevron case, which had eliminated judicial deference to agency decision-making for many, many decades. And they also dramatically extended the statute of limitations under the Administrative Procedure Act. What is your judgment is the cumulative effect of these decisions on the Federal Reserve? More broadly, what does it mean to the economy if virtually any regulatory decision the Fed makes can be second-guessed by a judge? What position are we in now?
So we're as an institution very focused on reading the actual letter and intent of the law and following it carefully. This is a strong institutional value that we have. Those are brand new decisions that just came down, and we're really in the process of just studying some. I don't have anything for you on them, but we will, of course, follow the law as the Supreme Court as the Supreme Court has read it, because that's their job.
Well, thank you, and I concur with compliance with the law. But when you do your analysis, and if it is detrimental to your ability to regulate the banking industry in the United States, I think you have an obligation to make that public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
I'm gonna flip the feed for a moment.
Seen certainly as good news. Some reports say it could be.
This is your next question session, basically. Keep in mind, I personally think, and I've been mentioning this, market sells down until you get confidence Jay Powell's not giving us a rug. Good opportunity, in my opinion, to buy if you think you get a bounce when Jay Powell's done.
As well as impeding access to credit for consumers. So even though you yourself have said there will be broad and material changes, I believe this proposal is flawed, both in process and in substance, and should be withdrawn. Do you agree, and will you commit to withdrawing the existing proposal and issuing a new proposal with a robust notice and comment process?
Let me update everyone on the status of all that. So over the past several months, we've had, in fact, Vice Chair for Supervision Barr has held a series of discussions with the other bank regulatory agencies around potential changes to the original proposal. I'm pleased to say that we've made quite a bit of progress on those and are very close to agreeing on the substance of those changes. And I can't really be specific because nothing is agreed until everything's agreed, so I won't have a lot of specifics for you today. The question where we're continuing to try to make progress is that of process. So it is my view, it is the strongly held view of members of the board that we do need to put a revised proposal out for comment for some period. And the reason is, when there are broad and material changes, that has been our practice. We don't see a reason to deviate from that practice. It seems to be consistent with past practice and with the Administrative Procedure Act. So that's very much what we think. And we're working through that question with the FDIC and the OCC. We haven't reached agreement on that, but I'm very hopeful that we will. We're prepared to move forward when we do reach agreement on that.
Well, I appreciate most of your response there. I do want to discuss one aspect more of Basel before we move on to another topic. I find it very concerning with how much of this proposal, this process appears to have been done behind closed doors. The Fed, the FDIC, OCC proposed the Basel III endgame last July. Then in October, the Fed began the collection of data to conduct a quantitative impact study on the cost of Basel III proposal, a study which I will note should have been conducted before any proposal was ever issued. Move forward to January of this year, Vice Chair Barr committed to a public comment period once results of the study were published. We are still waiting to view the results. Keep in mind, all the while, We're hearing rumors that the Fed is working on revising its proposal and moving towards an updated version. Please help me understand, how will the Fed revise or reissue a capital proposal before receiving public comment? That's basically my question.
Well, as you know, we have received extensive public comments, and we've also evaluated the quantitative impact survey that you mentioned.
Yes.
And so the idea would be when we do reach agreement with the other agencies fully, that we would publish the proposed changes and also the quantitative impact survey, and also the effects that the QIS suggests that the changes would have. So we'll put all that out for comment again for a period of time, and then having had yet another round of comment, and we can then move toward finalizing. That's basically the broad strokes of how I would see this moving forward.
And how long do you see that opportunity for public comments?
So it would be meaningful. I mean, it might be 60 days. We don't need to it doesn't need to be a long one. But, you know, before we do that, there's a lot of work that needs to take place, you know, before you actually put out the revised proposal. Quite a bit of work. So it will take some time, and then we would put it out, and then there would be, I'm just taking that number, 60 days of comment, and then we would get the comments back, and there would be another period of evaluating the comments, and only then would you go final. So there are a number of steps here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just final point as I'm running out of time here. I think Senator Reid made the comment about the Chevron case and the impact that it could have, certainly in curtailing, from my perspective, the regulatory state. The necessity of a cost-benefit analysis on new regulations that will impact the economy, I think, is quite helpful. In the 1,000-plus pages of Basel III, I think there were about 20 pages that reflected some kind of cost-benefit analysis approach. I really hope that we see more of that going forward.
Thank you.
Senator Tester from Montana is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the courtesy. Chairman Powell, good to see you here today. Appreciate your work. Look, regardless of where I go in the state of Montana, housing is a big issue, whether it's Billings or Butte or Bozeman or Busby or Big Sandy, it doesn't matter. Larger towns to medium-sized towns to small towns, housing is a huge issue. And I think it's a huge issue all over the country, and correct me if I'm not correct in that. And I was wondering how the housing challenges fit into the overall economic picture that you're seeing.
So we do pay a lot of attention, and I would agree with you. We have significant housing issues in the country, and we had them before the pandemic. Certainly, the pandemic has created new distortions, and you know, monetary policy works through interest-sensitive spending. There is no more interest-sensitive spending than, you know, buying a house and having a mortgage. So, for sure, our tighter policy is having an effect on economic activity in the housing sector. But I would also say the best thing we can do for housing is to succeed in getting inflation down to 2% on a sustainable basis, so that rates can come down, so that the housing market can get back to what was the pre-pandemic normal, which is to say still a housing shortage, but not dealing with the kinds of specific things we're dealing with now.
So let me drill down a little bit. I'm speaking not necessarily from a housing cost interest, and you're correct on the things you just brought up. I'm speaking more from a standpoint of economic growth, and that there are plenty of small businesses, schools, hospitals, Main Street businesses that can't hire people, they can't expand because there simply is no place for them to live. How does that fit into your economic outlook metrics? Because I think it's, from my perspective at least, I think it's limiting the opportunity for expansion. It's limiting the opportunity for entrepreneurs, business startups. And does that fit into the economic picture that you look at?
So our mandate is for stable prices and maximum employment. And again, I think for housing supply, the best thing we can do is get inflation under control so that rates can come back down, so that we can have a more normalized set of rates and a more normalized housing system. But I think policies to increase housing supply are really not so much in the hands of the Fed, they're in the hands of legislatures, you know, state and federal.
Do you believe that if we were to put forth some housing incentives, whatever they may be, that could have if those incentives resulted in more affordable workforce housing on the market, that would have positive impacts on the economy?
You know, these are questions for you, but I would say this, that I'm aware that housing is in short supply, and that for many it's a critical need for the workforce. Okay. And so more of it is better. But as to where the fiscal policy how you should prioritize that, that's not up to us.
Look, I want to talk about the independence of the Fed for a second, because I know that you are a strong supporter of independence, as am I, and political influence I don't think helps with monetary policy in the country. And so give me your perspective, at least, on why the central bank independence is so critically important.
Thank you. I'd be glad to. So essentially all advanced economies have adopted a policy of central bank and operational independence. And that just means that we make our decisions, we're instructed to make them without taking in extraneous factors, one of which would be politics. And the record is pretty clear that that's a good it's a good institutional arrangement that serves the public well. And you know, we just want to stress, as we do periodically, that this is an institutional choice that we make as a country, and that as long as it's seen to serve the public well, it's a good choice. We think so.
Okay, on advanced economies, there's some that talk about the economy of this country not being in very good shape. From your perspective, tell me how the economy of this country is doing compared to other advanced economies that have central banks.
You know, so I'm in lots and lots of international discussions as part of my job, and the story for the last 2 years has been just how exceptional the performance of the U.S. economy has been, and that's not a secret. You know, clearly the U.S. economy has performed very well compared to sort of our advanced economy colleagues.
Is there any country in the world with a central bank, any advanced economy that's performing better? Better
as a central bank?
Any economy that's an advanced economy that has a central bank that performs better than us?
None comes to mind. As I think of the majors, the answer would be no.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Tester. Senator Rounds of South Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first of all, thanks for coming in again and visiting with us. I just want to focus on two specific items, and I'm going to start with the Basel III endgame discussion. I think Senator Scott did an excellent.
I swear, just so you know how this works, these senators are paid by the banks. They get fat donations to bring frickin' Basel up. And the lobbyists are sitting there right now. Good puppet. Good. Ask Powell more about Basel III. It's all just rigged.
There will be material changes to every risk type outlined in the proposal. Since there will be significant changes, do you believe where the agencies have landed now would be considered a logical outgrowth of the original proposal from last summer?
For those people who are not familiar with, that's the legal test that turns out to be if it's a logical outgrowth. If it's not a logical outgrowth, that would legally require a reproposal. And I don't want to make the legal judgment. I will just say again, from my standpoint, my view and strongly held view of some of my colleagues on the board is that it will be appropriate for us to put out the changes again for a period of comment, just because it's the right thing to do. It's what we would do typically in a situation where there are, material changes to a proposed rule.
Do you feel that you have a consensus on the board to allow that to move forward in terms of an additional comment period?
Yes, but
don't worry, it'll break 258. You just wait for Powell to be done.
To work on something that would meet that need, and we have to get their agreement too.
Assuming it sounds like that's the path that you would like to go down.
Yes.
If that were the case, would it be fair to say that we'd probably be looking at final determinations or recommendations for a Basel III endgame proposal probably into next year before it would become anything of a final determination?
I think that may be right. That's something like that could be right. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to be precise. You know, we would put it out. It takes some time to write this stuff up. Then you put it out for comment. Then you get the comments. Then you read the comments. Then you write the final rule. You know, beginning part of next year is a good guesstimate.
The only reason why I push is because there are so many folks directly involved with this and the impact on our economy here and with a lot of our financial institutions. This is a significant change, and it's one that a lot of people are following. So I'm trying to get you to get into the depth of this as much as possible, and I thank you for that. I'd also want to go into one other area, and once again, this is something that you and I have had visits about in front of this group before, but I want to talk about what the parts of inflation are and what parts you can control and what parts, as the Fed, you really can't control.
Come on.
The demand side of the equation on inflation is the part that you have the tools to work with. But there is the supply side of the equation, which is still out there. And I want to just lay this out because as we do this in this setting, it naturally becomes political in nature because one of the
hell was that?
The starting points that we talk about is when this administration took off.
Oh, it was Tesla breaking out.
Side issues at that time. And as I work my way through this, I just want to share the concern that I've got. And then I recognize you don't want to be political in it, but I want to lay this out. And then I want to talk about what you can control and what you can't control with regard to making changes on inflation through the processes that you have. When President Biden took office, gasoline prices, since President Biden took office, gasoline prices have risen over 54%. Energy prices have risen 41%. Fuel oil prices have risen 37%. Now, I can go on, but you understand what I'm saying is that energy has increased substantially. And I think one of the reasons for this has been additional demand as we've come out of a pandemic. But the other part of this has been whether or not investors really want to go back in and invest in traditional energy resources after the president made the specific determination to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline on the day that he stepped into office. When he did that, he sent one heck of a message to investors about traditional energy and investing in traditional energy in the United States, and the fact that a multi-billion-dollar contract or contract could be canceled with the stroke of a pen. Now, my question to you is, what percent, or has there been a discussion about what percent or what amount of the inflation that we've seen, over 20% increase in terms of affordability for a lot of our products, how much of that is attributable to the demand side and how much of it really is attributable to supply side challenges that we've seen in this country?
That's a question that we've thought about a lot, and any attempt to reduce that to a precise number would be inappropriate because it's so uncertain. But I think we can say, I believe strongly, there's a significant demand element and there's a significant supply element, and we've seen the supply side heal so much over the course of the last year or so, and we clearly see that that's contributing to lower inflation. We also see cooling demand, for example, in the labor market. So the two forces are working together. I can't really break it down. It would be such an imprecise estimate.
Just simply an acknowledgement, though, that it is both demand.
It's both. It's definitely
and
both.
It is supply.
It is both. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired.
Chair Powell, unemployment has risen by 0.5 percentage point over the past year. The number of job openings has dropped almost 50%. The hiring and quit rates are now below pre-pandemic levels. I'm concerned that if the Fed waits too long to lower rates, the Fed could undo the progress we've made on creating good paying jobs. Full employment is part of the mandate, as you say over and over. How are you assessing the risks of higher interest rates in the labor market?
So I completely agree with your characterization. The latest data do show that we've had considerable cooling in the labor market. And we're very much aware that we have two-sided risks now, as I mentioned earlier, and we're determined to balance those as best we can. We want to see more good inflation data, and we also want to continue to see a strong labor market. And those two things are equal under the law. We have this challenging thing to balance them, but we're very much conscious that that is our job, and we're trying to do that.
Well, and you know that if unemployment trends upward, you must act immediately to protect Americans' jobs. Workers have too much to lose if the Fed overshoots inflation target and causes a completely unnecessary recession. We will say that over and over and over again. I think you understand that. Housing, higher interest rates are making housing more unaffordable. Higher rates are supposed to lower cost, yet housing prices continue to soar. By keeping rates high, the Fed ignores the economic reality of the millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet and get ahead. Let me ask you 3 quick yes or no questions, if you would answer that way. Since late 2022, when the Fed began,
no way it's going to be yes or no.
Volume of housing sales decreased.
I believe it has, yes.
Since late 2022, has the median home price increased?
I believe it has.
Since late 2022, have monthly mortgage payments become more affordable or less affordable for home buyers?
Less affordable.
Okay, thank you. In short, despite housing sales declining, the median price for a single-family home has increased by nearly $20,000. People are spending a greater share of their income in mortgage payments. So in some higher rates, it's clear from your answers and data, it's clear higher rates are not bringing down housing costs. The cost of home ownership is only going up. Let me shift to the Synapse bankruptcy. Since mid-May, tens of thousands of people, including many Ohioans, have lost access to their money due to the bankruptcy of this fintech middleman. Reports indicate that as much as $95 million may have gone missing. The Fed oversees one of Synapse's former partner banks, Evolve Bank and Trust. As a regulator, it's your job to make sure that banks protect the people whom they serve. What's the Fed doing to help customers who felt the impact by the Synapse collapse? What are you doing to regain access to their money?
So we do supervise the bank. We don't supervise Synapse, or let alone the fintechs that feed into Synapse. And we're strongly encouraging Evolve to do whatever it can to help make money available to those depositors. We also, as you may know, did an enforcement action against, before this all happened, we did an inspection or looked at Evolve, and we hit them with an enforcement action around these very risk management issues, again, before the current situation developed.
Okay, it's critical that consumers are made whole as soon as possible. We will continue to talk to you about that. We will watch. We will let you know we're watching. The Fed needs to use its supervisory authority to ensure that Evolve is committing the resources necessary to return those funds to the account holders.
That's the Yada Bank situation, right? That's crazy. It came up in the Fed meeting. Evolve and Synapse.
Incentive-based compensation encouraged excessive risk-taking that led to failure. You either watched or had reports of when those bank CEOs testified in front of this committee. The report, the incentive-based compensation that led to the bank's failure, I mentioned, it said that SVB managers, quote, had a financial incentive to focus on short-term profit over sound risk management. That's what a number of us, Senator Smith.
Oh, yeah, that was Summer, by the way.
Warner and I have said over and over that that short-term profit over sound risk management causes significant problems to our financial system. Compensation practices still pose a threat to our banking system. I urge you to move quickly to join your colleagues in the long overdue rulemaking on executive compensation. I mean, you read the reports at the outrage of the public about executive compensation continuing to go up and up and up and up. You have a role, a significant role, a legal role to deal with that. Thank you. Senator Tillis is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. I want to be real quick on Basel III endgame, and I want to be mindful of time. Just simply, can I get a commitment from you on releasing the results of the QIS?
Yeah, we plan to release the results of the QIS.
What time frame?
Well, first we have to get agreement with the other banking agencies, but as soon as possible.
Can you imagine any agencies having a concern with any other banking agencies having a concern with releasing it? Or is it just a matter of pro forma? Okay.
It's just a matter of the bigger picture of getting agreement on the revisions to Basel III and also how to proceed.
That's great, and I really appreciate the feedback that I've received from you. I should have started by thanking you again for your continued accessibility and discussions outside of the committee. They're very productive, and I appreciate that and your leadership at the Fed. I grew up in the 70s. Got my Social Security number in 1973 when I was 12 years old. That's when I made my first payment. So I've been following the economy even as a youngster. And that was a really lousy time to enter in the workforce. Tell me, and I'm hearing discussions among some of our members now that would almost be reminiscent of discussions with prior Fed members saying, look, we got to lower interest rates and we've got unemployment out of control. So it sounds like we're taking some suggestions from some of my colleagues or plays from a playbook that didn't prove to be very effective back in the 70s. What can we learn? I'm not going to ask you about where you go from here, but if we look back into a postmortem on some of the decisions that were made when we had consistently high uninflation, we had the inflation, I should say, we had consistently high.
It sounded like uninflation.
What lessons can we learn there, or what mistakes should we not necessarily repeat? And I know that this is a fingerprint of a challenge. It's not exactly like the stressors that we had back in the 70s, but what can we learn from the decisions, what I think are arguably the wrong decisions made back then when we were dealing with high unemployment and high inflation? What did we learn?
I think the number one thing we learned was that it's up to the central bank to take it on and stick with it until it's done. And that doesn't sound controversial now, but it actually was back then. And so people didn't really get in there and get it done, and inflation kept coming back. I also think there are significant differences this time to the questions a minute ago. This is a combination of a supply side that we had very significant supply shocks along with big demand shocks from the reopening of the economy and from all the other things that happened. So I think we have to, each one of these things is different in its own way. We try to learn the lessons of history, though.
You agree or disagree? Any disconnect between inflation and inflation expectations from the 2% target should be addressed now and not at a later time?
Absolutely.
I like that answer. I want to go to something different. I'm trying to go into a lightning round now and finish on time. We've seen the 2024 stress test results for the U.S. banking system. It looks like to me, by every objective measure, we've got a banking system that's on strong financial footing. Do you agree?
Yes.
One last thing is the Fed considers making broad and material changes to the Basel III proposal. Back on that one.
I'm at least 3 mentions now.
Second order issues, important FBOs.
Here's my bingo for now.
That banks are not unduly in.
Sorry. That.
The outsized operational risk costs were high. Are we going to take care of that in any sort of reproposal?
Let me just say we're very conscious of the comments across the spectrum: foreign banks, domestic banks, small, medium-sized banks. You know, everyone's going to get heard carefully as part of this process. That is our obligation.
Okay. And I think in response to Senator Round's question, you did indicate there's probably, because of the nature of the likely changes from what Mr. Barr expected to what may ultimately come, we are going to open it up to comment again.
That's the strong view of the Federal Reserve. We're working on that question with the FDIC and the OCC to try to find a path to do that. But
Very good.
From our standpoint, that's essential.
I think it's a strong view from at least several members on this side of the dais here. That would be very, very important, because I think it's going to materially change. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Tillis. Senator Warner of Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's good to see you again. Coming this late in the questioning, I'm going to at least hit a couple of the items that my colleagues have otherwise already hit, because I make sure it's noted that I raised them as well. First of all, I want to agree with the chairman. You know, I probably hear more on housing and housing affordability than any other issue, and I agree with the chairman. I know we've discussed this around a rate cut, and I understand most of your answer, but I still want to add my 2 cents here. We've got to find a way to start bringing mortgage rates down and let people get unlock that housing market. And again, we've discussed the rate cut issue, and I know you've got to navigate that, but I hope it's sooner than later. I will not recap what I've done in the last couple hearings with you, but I do think the discount window proposal that I've gotten, that I know you're working on, you know, before we think about additional regulations that we do need in some cases. I think the discount window is an underused tool, was one of the original tools for the Fed. A lot of my colleagues have talked about quantitative easing, Basel III endgame. I do hope when we get the revisions that we'll see the quantitative analysis that, again, Senator Tillis already raised and other colleagues have raised. I also hope that one of the questions I raised in my March letter to you was, making sure any new regulatory structure, how it intersects with existing regulatory structure in terms of market risk, credit risk. And I, again, hope that we will have that as the revisions come out. I think one of the things that this debate around Basel III raised was that it is, my understanding at least, looked at, you may be all looking at revisions to liquidity standards as well, and wanted to see what you could say about that and whether that part of those standards are under review and what your thinking is.
Yeah, and I think that actually connects to the Silicon Valley Bank questions as well, where I think there seems to be a need to update assumptions about liquidity. And that's a separate proposal that we're also working on. And, very important. I think we saw how fast that run was. It was just exponentially faster than prior runs. That's the new world. And that's some estimate of what that world is baked into things like the liquidity coverage ratio, for example.
Right. And wasn't that the case? If you had 25 cents on every depository dollar leave in 6 hours, no matter what the capital standards are.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I guess, there was a lot of talk after SVB that we need to think about internet-driven runs. A lot of us raised concerns. Candidly, I'm not sure I've heard any good proposals. So whether it comes from you guys or from folks listening, how we think about this new internet-driven world. And frankly, I think some of the irresponsible behavior by some of the folks that were major depositors in SVB who in many ways shouted fire in the crowded theater, and we've not seen any action there. So I would welcome additional ideas as well. And that kind of brings me to my last questions around supervisory reform. I know the GAO criticized the Fed's supervisory procedures in the role they played in the 2023 failures. It is a whole brand new world. Are we going to look at...
Oh, Tesla's going for the 258 touch again.
Change.
Third time's the charm. Come on, baby.
Comprehensive? Will there be one-off? How do you think about that in light of the GAO report and also in light of just the SVB and the few of the other failures we saw last year?
Vice Chair Barr is...
Yeah, it's banking regulation, capital requirements, blah, blah, blah. It's literally like a book of new capital requirements to try to prevent another bank run. So every time you hear Basel III, just think like finance rules for banks. I honestly kind of tune most of it out. Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares but the bankers.
It's appropriate. So that's a big project going on at the Fed right now, which really Vice Chair for Supervision leads.
I think I remember lots of conversations with the chairman, with you, with the FDIC, and that Thursday through Sunday. And I think the solution you guys came up with, the administration came up with by Sunday night was a good one, but they were a pretty scary 3 or 4 days there.
Yeah, this hearing has another 90 minutes, honestly. But honestly, my take is as soon as this meeting's done, markets pump. Because people are going to go, all right, we heard everything we needed to hear from Powell. It's going to be the same thing tomorrow. And then, nobody really cares about CPI this week.
And again, I would strongly encourage any additional thoughts on this technology risk and how we get that right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Order. Senator Kennedy of Louisiana is recognized.
Oh, here we go. We're breaking out at 258. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Clear 258 and we're going to 295, baby.
Our economy is slowing. Is it not?
Yes, although still growing at a solid pace.
Remember, if you want all the alerts for the trades that I make, when I make them, can't guarantee we'll make money, but if you want to join the, up 35K on Tesla calls, let's go. Make sure to join in the Stocks and Psych group, link down below, meetkevin.com. We extended the July 4th code through this Friday just to get through CPI this week.
Historical standards, but yes, it is good. We've seen cooling, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the recent jobs numbers, I know you've glanced at them too. About 3/4 of the net new jobs that were created in June were in government, healthcare, and social assistance. What does that tell you?
That's late cycle. This is actually going to be a good question.
You'd rather see broader job creation than that. Those three areas have, in some reports, they've been, as it was this time, they've been the predominant creators of jobs. That tells you that job creation is becoming less broad in the economy and it's narrowing.
It tells you that government's creating those jobs, doesn't it?
Well, it's government. It's also in-person services. It's also some of it's government.
Manufacturing's been flat.
Yes, manufacturing's not creating a lot of new jobs these days.
Information technology shed jobs over the past 2 years, hasn't it?
I don't know.
Leisure and hospitality jobs have slowed to almost a trickle.
So that's a place where there was a desperate worker shortage, and they've done quite a bit of hiring, but they're catching up now.
I mean, three-quarters of the jobs that are being created in our economy can be related directly or indirectly to our spending deficits, can't they?
In this report, in this single report, I don't know that healthcare is really government spending. I mean, that's something people are
Where do you
consuming.
think these hospitals get their money?
They may get it, but I mean, people are not. The spending on healthcare is not necessarily directly related to deficits. Is my point.
I would disagree with you. I mean, here's my point. We talk a lot about expectations in terms of inflation. How if we expect there to be inflation, we'll get inflation. It seems to me that consumer expectations play a bigger role in the economy than we cede to them. Most of our economy in America is consumer driven, is it not?
Yes,
Unlike, say, China, which is manufacturing driven.
very much so.
And I listened to you cite the statistics about the economy, but most Americans don't feel good about the economy, do they?
No, and we don't tell people how to feel about the economy.
I mean, isn't it a fact that most people, if you ask them to define Bidenomics, they would say that's easy. We get to pay more to live worse.
I wouldn't touch
You don't want to answer that
a sentence with that word in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can pretty this up all I guess my point is, and I know you're going to do this anyway.
That word, was that Biden? Did he refer to Biden as that word or what? Or Bidenomics?
Feel better off today. And one can marshal a persuasive argument that, well, you should, compared to Europe or compared to China, compared to Canada. But feelings are feelings. People don't feel good about this economy. And it's primarily because of inflation. Let me use my final 30 seconds to ask you. I listened to my good friend, the chairman, give his opening statement. Do you think inflation was caused by corporate greed?
I hate to comment on something the chairman was speaking about.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, so I will just say, we see at the Fed, we see inflation as when there's an imbalance between supply and demand. And we use our tools to work on the demand side of that and bring it back into line with supply.
I got 2 seconds. So when are you going to lower interest rates?
I'm today not going to be sending any signals about the timing of any future actions.
There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's what
Senator
we thought.
Smith of Minnesota is recognized.
No hit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Chair Powell. It's good to see you again. I want to follow up on kind of the line of questioning that Senator Tester was on a bit ago. He was talking about how the U.S. economy has been outperforming other advanced economies around the world in terms of growth rates, in terms of unemployment, in terms of inflation, getting inflation under control, though I think we obviously can all agree that we're not, at least from my perspective, we're not done yet. And we don't want to rest on our laurels, but I'm wondering if you could share what you think that we have learned from this experience. What have we done right? And why is it that we are doing better than some of the other advanced economies in the world?
Your mom.
I think that it's down to the fundamental strengths of our economy. So, as you may know, European economic officials are very, very focused on this question. They really, it comes up in all of our discussions that Europe has seen productivity increases of about 1% a year for 40 years. We've seen 2%. If you take a number and compound it at 1%, then compound it at 2%, the difference is just enormous after 40 years in terms of incomes and living standards. And their question is, why is that? Why is that? And the standard answer that Americans tend to give and that I would give is it's down to more flexible labor markets. They in the pandemic, people they stayed in their existing jobs. In the United States, we had people changing jobs at record levels, and that's the kind
Here we go, Tesla, pump it up.
Contributes to rising living standards, going back to school, getting skills and things like that. Another one is our financial sector. We don't just have banks. We have a highly developed ecosystem of financing sources that will fund early stage investments. Banks are really not set up to do that. They're prudentially regulated. And so those are some of the things. And I think we just have these natural strengths as an innovative, more flexible economy. We can grow faster.
I appreciate that. I think sometimes there's a tendency to sort of trash our economy and to sort of say, oh, we suck. And actually, I think that there's great resilience in our economy. I would argue that it has also to do a lot with the incredible resilience of our workers and their creativity and their talent and the training and the education that they have. And I think I would also argue, though I wouldn't expect you to make this case, that the way in which our federal government responded to the pandemic in order to make sure that people weren't evicted, that they still had money to pay their bills even when they weren't able to work, meant that overall our economy, survived and was ready to kind of be off to the races when we emerged from the pandemic. But Chair Powell, I'd like to ask you a question, something that you and I have talked about, I continue to be thinking a lot about, which is the commercial real estate risk that we have in this country. I think particularly for office space. We know that has been under strain the last several years. The sector has remained largely stable, but we are hearing about some additional default risk. And one thing that I'm noting is that there's some expectation or concern that may fall disproportionately on smaller banks. I think that commercial and regional banks hold an estimated 2/3 of all the commercial real estate loans in the country. And so unlike larger banks, these smaller institutions might find it a little harder to deal with this. So could you discuss this with us? Could you tell us a little bit about how you see this risk and particularly whether this poses some additional risk that we might be seeing more concentration in the banking sector as these smaller banks are maybe under more pressure?
Yes, so this, to your point, this is a risk that has been with us and will be with us for some time, probably for years. And banks need to be, honestly assessing what their risk is. They need to be assured that they have the capital and the liquidity and the systems in place to manage this risk. The stress test that we apply to the largest institutions stressed commercial real estate pretty hard. And again, the conclusion is that the large banks can manage this problem. And most small banks can too, but it is in some smaller banks that tend to have that local concentration in commercial real estate. And, we're in touch with those banks. The supervisors and regulators are in touch with those banks and making sure that they can manage them. And it's going to be an issue for many banks, but it's one that we're trying to work through, one that we're very much aware of. And again, it'll be with us for some time.
Thank you. I think so much about the importance of these small regional community banks in small towns, even big towns in Minnesota, and how important it is that, in my book, that they can stay independent and better serve their communities in that way. So I worry about this risk. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Smith. Senator Butler of California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, good to see you.
Good to see you.
And I am going to make you do the whole last 5 minutes, since I'm the last one for today. You'll recall the first time.
What? Last person for today already? What? That's great.
Is one was how the monetary policy impacts the quality of life for young Americans in the future, and the work that you are doing there, the space of climate risk, and what I see as potentially a future challenge down the road, and that is the state of commercial real estate. You and I have had that conversation before, and no surprises today. I'm going to stick to those three topics. Somewhat related to questions that you've been asked before relative to the housing market, housing affordability, and interest rates. I want to narrow the scope just a little bit to ask about those issues and challenges impact, again, the quality of life for America's next generation. Given the severe shortage of affordable and available homes to buy, coupled with high interest rates, young Americans are continually unable to afford homes and are pushed into a rental market, driving rental costs up. So there is sort of trickle-down impact here. A recent Washington Post analysis showed that Gen Z is spending 31% more on housing than their millennial counterparts were 10 years ago after adjusting for inflation. How do you view, that was a long lead-in to just ask the question, how do you envision or view the interest rates of today and the monetary balancing, policy balancing that the Fed is doing on contributing to the future generation predicament if we are to extrapolate the conditions of today?
So our job, of course, is the whole economy and inflation for the whole economy. And the absolute best thing we can do for younger people is to restore price stability so that as we benefited from, I graduated from college in 1975, near the end of the big inflation period. So during most of my adult life, inflation has just been not a factor. And that means, stable interest rates, relatively low interest rates. We want to get back to that. And that is what the Fed's job is that we're not supposed to look at the housing market as separate from the overall economy. In the meantime, though, there's no question that higher interest rates are making it harder to buy homes in the short term. But in the longer term, this is the best thing particularly for younger people who are not yet in the housing market.
Let me sort of in line with that community, constituency, population, and definitely aligned with the concerns of my state that's actually facing some severe climate impacts, just as we speak with wildfires and our colleagues and fellow Americans in Texas and the impact of the hurricane. I wanted to pull in your sort of thoughts about the Fed pilot on the climate scenario exercise. In May, the Fed conducted a pilot climate scenario exercise and asked the 6 largest U.S. banks to examine their balance sheets and how it would be effective if a large hurricane hit the Northeast. They reported facing data gaps on property characteristics, their counterparties and insurance coverage. How does the Federal Reserve intend to invest in expanding the modeling resources for banks that are implementing climate-related financial disclosures?
So we haven't made any decisions on what to do with that information or whether to repeat that exercise. To your point, it was really a learning exercise. How are banks thinking about this, and how are they modeling it, and how does it work really? It's a very, very challenging thing to model. And so that was really the nature of this exercise. In terms of disclosures, we don't really have that's not really our job. That's really the SEC. So, but we don't have a big job on climate, but what it really is to make sure that the institutions we regulate are aware of and understand the risks that they run, including risks from climate.
And that they're prepared, and learning how to, as would be the point of a pilot, learning how to mitigate those risks over time. So what criteria will you use to evaluate whether or not you will run the exercise again and or share more broadly the results of that exercise?
I think we did publish, most of the results of that exercise. So I don't know what to say about that. We're looking at it and we're asking ourselves, what did we learn? What do we need to learn next time? So, I'm not exactly sure what factors we'll be looking at, but we'll be doing a careful assessment of what more we need to do.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hagerty is recognized.
What?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, welcome. Chairman, last week in Portugal, you said
Didn't she say she was the last question? I guess she's not.
that inflation is moving sustainably down before you begin to cut rates. You also said in your testimony that you need greater confidence and more good data before lowering rates. Can you give us any color as to what it is you're looking for in the data and how long it might take us to get there?
We need just to see more good inflation data. That's all. We had 7 months of good inflation data at the end of last year. Then we had a quarter, really a month or so, where inflation went up, and now we had one really good inflation reading and one pretty good one. We just need to see more so that confidence rises. I'm not going to tell.
Are we weeks away, months away?
I'm going to try to avoid sending any really specific signals about time today because it's going to depend on the data. It also matters what's going on in the labor market, though. We've also said that if the labor market weakens unexpectedly, that could be a case for loosening policy as well. Really, we're weighing both those factors.
Here's one of my concerns. I'm sure you probably share it, but we're coming off of a 40-year high in inflation. We've seen the rate of inflation coming down, but we haven't gotten to the 2% target. And my concern, for lack of a better term, is whether or not this might be transitory in terms of the data that we're seeing right now.
That's exactly why we're approaching this question carefully.
I thought that might be your answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we shift now to the issuance of Treasury debt? The Fed is the largest holder of Treasury debt. In February, you and I talked about the pressures that our fiscal deficit is exerting on interest rates, which by extension makes your job more difficult. I'd like to talk this time about how Treasury issuance is impacting our economy and our monetary policy. First, just a basic question. If Treasury issuance were to shift drastically, either to the long end or the short end of the curve, would that affect interest rates? Or maybe more simply, do changes in supply across maturities impact interest rates on the yield curve?
I think in theory they can.
Yeah, I agree. As you know, the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee recommends that T-bills comprise between 15 and 20% of total U.S. debt. Right now, the Treasury is issuing T-bills significantly above that recommended range. Some people, including myself, believe that this is being done to artificially stimulate markets in the run-up to the election. And it's shocking how little attention this is getting. Any manipulation of debt management of this nature stimulates inflationary pressures and increases taxpayer burden because it's higher cost to issue these bills. So given that Treasury is issuing an excess of short-term debt, which pulls down longer-term rates, isn't it working at cross purposes with your monetary policy goals of taming inflation?
So we take Treasury's debt management decisions. We don't comment on them. We just do our job.
No, I'm not asking for a comment on their decision, but just as a simple mathematical truth, if they're pulling down demand on the long end of the curve, doesn't that?
I wouldn't say that has important inflation implications. No.
It just feels to me the same way that the Biden administration drains the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that undermines our ability to respond to energy shocks. When the Treasury manages its debt in this manner, it constrains our ability to respond to future economic shocks. And that opens our nation up to very real risk, whether it be amplifying the effects of the Fed's balance sheet reduction, flooding the supply of one of the most important short-term debt instruments. The risks seem to me to be mounting for Treasury market disruption. I'd like to know what your thoughts are, Mr. Chairman, about how the Fed will navigate this and whether you've had discussions with the Treasury about this growing dangerous dynamic.
No, we don't have a seat at the table on Treasury debt management. Treasury makes those decisions, and they don't have a seat at our table on monetary policy.
I just think the risk is very obvious here, though, where we're headed with this type of portfolio
Honestly,
management.
it's completely out of bounds for me to comment on Treasury debt management in any way.
I think you've been dealt a very difficult hand here, Mr. Chair. The Biden administration's policies aimed to gin up the economy ahead of the election. These efforts directly undermine your policy goals at the Fed. That includes excessive issuance of short-term debt. Think about it, Freddie Mac's backstop of second mortgages, unlawful student debt loan cancellations, the draining of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to suppress fuel prices, and President Biden's own jawboning of the FOMC to lower rates. As you know, the Federal Reserve was structured to shield monetary policy from political influence, and that independence has given the Fed unique credibility in executing its mission. If the FOMC were influenced in any way by political calculation rather than economic data, it would severely damage the Fed's credibility as an independent institution, it would increase uncertainty in our markets, and it would jeopardize the dollar status as the global reserve currency. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Warren of Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the CEOs of giant banks can boost their bonuses by getting the banks to take on more risk,
Here we go.
that they will
Market tanks when Warren comes up.
2008, and it happened again in 2023. Back in 2010, though, Congress passed the Dodd-Frank Act. Section 956 told financial regulators solve this problem. 2 months ago, regulators put forward a proposal, but the Fed refused to join. Now, in 2018, you told this committee, Mr. Chairman, that you, quote, expect that banks will have in place compensation plans that do not provide incentives for excessive risk-taking. In other words, you trusted the banks to write their own rules. So let's see if they actually have. One thing the proposal would do is require big banks to delay bonuses for a broad group of critical employees who are able to gamble with the bank's finances, like the head of a trading desk, for example. Chair Powell, in the 6.5 years since you said trust the banks to regulate themselves, how many of the 10 biggest banks have put policies in place to delay annual bonuses for this broader group of critical employees whose risk-taking could endanger the bank?
I don't know specifically. My guess is all of them. Since the financial crisis.
You're the regulator who said trust the banks to self-regulate so we can avoid another financial meltdown or another bailout. And you don't know if they did or didn't do that?
Well, it's a very, very specific, narrow question you're asking about.
Because it's something a regulator should do. You think the answer is 10 out of 10? The answer is 0 out of 10.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Well, go back and look, because we've looked at their statements on this. Another thing the proposed rule would do is require the banks to consider flat out banning bonuses.
He loves her.
Bonus pay for executives who took risks that threatened the stability of the bank. So let me ask you this one, Chair Powell, in the 6.5 years since you said trust the banks to regulate themselves, how many of the 10 biggest banks now have policies that would require them to flat out deny bonuses to executives that have engaged in inappropriate risk-taking?
I don't know the answer to that. By the way, I never said trust the banks to regulate themselves.
I'm sorry, do you want me to go back and quote you again exactly?
Trust the banks to regulate themselves?
When you say, I expect that the banks will have in place compensation plans that do not provide incentives for excessive risk-taking.
Right, pursuant to the guidance that we issued in 2010, which is quite detailed.
And you have not issued a guidance since you made these comments, since you became chair. And how many banks have actually put in place the regulations that you said, I expect the banks will have in place? The answer is out of 10,
It was covered
0.
by the 2010 guidance.
No, you said in 2018 that they would put these in place.
I said they would have in place.
No, that is not what you said. So look, Chair Powell, the last guidance on this subject, as you say, was in 2010, which is before you were at the Fed. The Fed has now refused to join the other financial regulators in finalizing a rule implementing Section 956 as Congress directed. So my question has been, how many of the 10 biggest banks have done this? And the answer is 0. Dodd-Frank was passed 14 years ago, there are still no rules to stop banks from rewarding executives' risky behavior. When you were asked about these Section 956 rules or lack of rules in March of this year, you said, quote, that you wanted to understand the problem we're solving before proposing a rule. Chair Powell, the law does not say Jerome Powell, in his infinite wisdom, should decide if we have a problem with executive compensation. The law passed 14 years ago says executive pay is a problem that threatens the stability of our economy, so write the rules to rein them in. Finally, the other financial regulators have proposed such a rule, but the Fed has not joined. Chair Powell, I understand why the 10 biggest banks in the country like your approach. You let them do whatever they want, but you don't work for the giant banks. You work for the American people. I urge you to do your job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Vance from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to Chair Powell for being here. I appreciate you coming by our office last week to discuss some of these issues. I would ask something I imagine most of my colleagues are not asking, which is the relationship between immigration, particularly extremely high illegal immigration levels under the Biden administration.
Hey, this guy might be the VP nominee.
And I recognize this is not your policy focus, but you are the Federal Reserve Chairman, so I just want to get your views on this. And in particular, I want to read you a quote from Mickey Bowman, who's one of your governors. And this says, in a quote, "There is a risk that increased immigration and continued labor market tightness could lead to persistently high core services inflation. Given the current low inventory of affordable housing, the inflow of new immigrants in some geographic areas could result in upward pressure on rents as additional housing supply may take time to materialize. With labor markets remaining tight, wage growth has been elevated at around or above 4%, still higher than the pace consistent with our 2% inflation goal, given trend productivity growth." The Bank of England, I believe, produced a recent report on this issue in the United Kingdom, obviously a different economy in a different country. But what do you see as the relationship, in particular, given that housing is such a big driver of the inflation that we've seen over the last few years? As Senator Haggerty said, the highest in 40 years. What role do you see illegal immigration playing in driving up housing costs, which, of course, is a main driver of inflation for American citizens?
Let me quickly start by echoing your first comment, which is we don't comment on immigration policy, but we do comment on inflation. So I would say this. Many people came into the country over the last couple of years, many of them through asylum requests, and went to work. Labor supply increased a great deal. It's not, there's no clear answer, but my sense is that in the long run, immigration is kind of neutral on inflation. In the short run, it may actually have helped because the labor market got looser because there were more people. But to you're talking about housing specifically. There will be, I'm sure there are places in the country where new people coming into the country, I'm sure you can find places and they exist where that will have contributed to an already tight housing market. But overall, in terms of aggregate inflation, I wouldn't say it's a driver one way or the other.
So I want to follow up on that thread, but just on that topic of particular areas that have been affected, Chairman Brown, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to submit a letter for the record from the city of Springfield in our state, the southwestern part of our state, which I think highlights a very real example of this particular concern, straight from the horse's mouth itself. And now this letter, I want to quote from it. "Springfield has seen a surge in population through immigration that has significantly impacted our ability as a community to produce enough housing opportunities for all. Springfield's Haitian population has increased 15 to 20,000 over the last 4 years in a community of under 60,000 previous residents, putting a significant strain on our resources and ability to provide ample housing for all of our residents." And end quote there. And Mike.
No objection. So
thank you. In my conversations with folks in Springfield, it's not just housing. They're trying to build 5,000 new housing units, which is a very Herculean task in a town of about 55,000 people. But it's also hospital services, it's school services, there are a whole host of ways in which this immigration problem, I think, is having very real human consequences. But I want to go back just one other question, Chair Powell, on this immigration and labor supply question. So One of the euphemistic ways in which economists, I think, sometimes talk about labor supply and immigration is they'll say something to the effect of, well, an increase in labor supply has put downward pressure on labor prices. And what they're effectively saying is that increased immigration has put downward pressure on the wages of American workers. I wonder, when you hear sort of your colleagues and other economists outside of the Fed talk about the influx of immigration and the fact that it, I think, admittedly has put downward pressure on wages. Okay, so there obviously that has put some downward pressure on inflation, but it also puts downward pressure on the wages that people earn to pay for their families. Why do we see that as a good thing? Or maybe that's wrong. Maybe the premise is fundamentally incorrect. But why do so many economists treat an influx of new labor as a good thing? If labor is constrained, labor supply is constrained, doesn't that lead to rising wages for American workers?
So I'm not certainly not trying to put a value judgment on it. I will say that this is all happening over the last couple of years in a context of an extremely tight labor market, now a little bit less tight, significantly less tight, but you've got a worker shortage, you've got businesses who have jobs that are open, you have, more than one job opening for every unemployed person. So you've got a very tight labor market, and it's addressing that, and we're having wage increases are still very high, but they're coming down to a more sustainable level.
Fair. And Mr. Chair, I know I'm over time, could I just one more question on this? Thank you. I understand your point, Chair Powell, and again, I'm not ascribing value judgments to you, but if we say we have a really tight labor market, and we say that there are more than one job openings per worker, there are two ways you could plausibly solve that, probably more than that, but two obvious ways you could plausibly solve that. One is through a new influx of workers via the immigration system. Another way is by raising wages and bringing some of the workers that are on the sidelines. I think specifically of the 7 million prime age men that have dropped out of the labor force. Like, why isn't that more the focus of policymakers rather than, you see a labor shortage, rather than bringing in a large number of new immigrants, why not try to boost wages in a way that brings some of those workers off the sidelines? That seems to be a much better focus from my perspective.
Certainly, that's a very constructive focus. I would agree. It's not, I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Van Hollen from Maryland's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's good to see you. And let me first applaud you and your team at the Fed for, at least so far, being on track to bring down inflation without, so far, triggering a surge, big uptick in unemployment. But you know very well that that's a risk if the Fed does not act with full awareness of that danger. When you were here in March, you said that you were, quote, well aware, unquote, of the risk to unemployment of waiting too long to cut rates and, quote, very conscious of avoiding it, unquote. Since then, we have seen a slowing in the economy and a rise in unemployment. I'm just reading something today, an analysis with Diane Swank, KPMG's chief economist, who summed it up by saying, quote, the ice is thinning, red flags are emerging for the U.S. economy, unquote. The engine of the economy, the labor market, is cooling faster than previously known. The unemployment rate is above 4% for the first time since 2021. It is taking workers longer to find jobs. Economic activity in the service sector, which is responsible for 2/3 of economic growth, slowed in June. So my question, Mr. Chairman, is how do you take all of these factors into account? Do you share my concern that as of today, there is a real risk of an increase in unemployment larger than is currently on your radar screen?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I do, even more so than in March when we were here, see that. So we've seen, and I think the latest data show that labor market conditions have now cooled considerably from where they were 2 years ago. And I wouldn't have said that until the last couple of readings. And I would say also that for a long time, the risks were more that we would fail to hit our inflation target. I think the risks as to the two statutory targets we have price stability and maximum employment. I think those are coming much more into balance. My colleagues and I are looking at that, and we fully understand that we have to manage this process of administering the federal funds rate and deciding what to do with it in a way that manages both of those risks. And, the two mandates are equal under the law. And so, yes, we do get that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you've seen that that calculation change since you were last here, because I think the data indicates that we are at risk now of not acting soon enough to curb the increase in unemployment, and that if we allow that to go too long, we may see a real uptick there. And so I'm pleased that is very, very much on your radar screen, and hope that will be a really deciding factor as you and your other Fed colleagues determine what to do with respect to interest rates. And as has been said in the housing sector, we are seeing the continuing drag created by high interest rates. So that has been I think all of our colleagues, as you probably heard today, are really hearing from our constituents, understandably, about the very high housing prices. And it's slowed investment in other sectors like manufacturing as well. In my final minute, I would like to turn to the question that Senator Warren asked, because I asked your colleague, Vice Chair Barr, about exactly this question of implementing Section 956 of Dodd-Frank when he was before the committee just a short time ago, May 16th of this year. And I asked him about why the Fed had not moved forward along with other agencies with respect to implementing what the law is and what the law has been for 10 years. NCUA has signaled their intent to propose a rule. The SEC has indicated that they're moving forward. I said to Vice Chair Barr that I've not seen any notice of proposed rule from the Fed, and can I get a commitment that the Fed will quickly begin to process implementing this law by issuing a notice of proposed rule? His answer was, and I'm in discussions with my colleagues, it became apparent that at the board, we believe we need to conduct some further analysis before deciding what steps to take. We are committed to following the law, to implementing Section 956, but we have further work to do. Count me among those who are very frustrated that we're now 10 years after this law was passed. Vice Chair Barr committed to following the law. I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, you would commit to following the law. But why is it that it's taking the Fed so long to move forward with implementation of 956?
So I like to look at the actual language of the statute when what it says is it calls on the regulators to make determinations about specific incentive compensation practices that cause excessive risk taking. And then, and we haven't done that. We did, that we put in place pretty serious guidance back in 2010 after putting it out for comment. We looked at all these questions. It's been in place for 14 years. We supervise on it. And, so the question I'm asking is, okay, let's go out and look at what the practices are that are happening now, not that are happening before the global financial crisis when it was obvious that things needed to be changed. And we put the guidance in place. It seems to have largely worked, certainly as it relates to the large firms. And then let's design something that is designed to the residual risk as opposed to just taking something off the shelf from 15 years ago and doing that. So and we're working on that at the Fed now. And again, the statute requires us to prescribe regulations or guidelines to prohibit those things. And I want to do that. In a sense, we have done
just very briefly, and is it your testimony that the Fed has already met the requirements of okay?
No,
just want to make that clear, and we do look forward to the Fed moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. Senator Brett from Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair Powell, thank you for being with us today. My colleague from Maryland actually just touched on something, but as I was listening to the exchange from my colleague from Massachusetts and her closing remarks, particularly about Dodd-Frank and 956, there was also a comment at the end where she mentioned you working for giant banks versus the American people. Now, I have a long list of questions I want to talk to you about, but I did want to get you to respond to that.
Yeah, that's completely untrue. You know, the things that we're doing are consistent with our international obligations, and they're meant to be the best thing for the American economy, and that's really our only consideration. We have
NVIDIA may have bottomed, by the way.
across various things, but you know, we're all trying to achieve the best results we can for the people that we serve.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chair Powell, I have repeatedly talked about my concern with long-term debt proposal and just think that it has not been well thought through. First, I have concerns that it blatantly undermines the tailoring requirement. And on that note, do you believe that 2155 will be applicable to the long-term debt requirement?
I think it applies to everything. Absolutely. And on the long-term debt requirement, you know, we have voluminous comments that we're looking at carefully and thinking through the process of what to do about them.
No, I appreciate that because I do believe that currently it lacks a real cost-benefit analysis, and I think it really does need serious reconsideration. And additionally, when you take a look at it and its overlapping nature with Basel III, it seems inappropriate that we would move forward with a new long-term debt proposal, finalizing that rule when we don't even really understand what Basel III is going to mean for capital requirements for banks and obviously financial institutions. So my question for you is just that. Would it be inappropriate to move forward with the long-term debt proposal, finalizing that rule prior to Basel III being finalized as well?
I don't know that I would give you, I can't give you a clear answer on that. It will depend. I mean, Basel III won't be finalized for some time, but that's not to say we wouldn't reach a place where people understand and accept and support what it is that we're doing. And then I think at that point, we could certainly move forward with other rules.
I heard you mention to one of my other colleagues that probably by the time this all took place, it would be the beginning of next year. I would just say my concern, the Fed has said that the long-term debt rule will directly be impacted by the final Basel product. And so, you know, why would it be inappropriate or appropriate to move forward with that before banks can fully understand what they're facing from Basel? So I would just ask that y'all are thoughtful about that. These are a lot of things that people are dealing with and trying to really understand the implications of. And I think we have seen consistently that people are not taking a look at the cumulative impact of these things and not really taking a look at the trickle-down effect. And on that, on Basel, when you testified in March, you said the Fed was aware and fully considering the potential impacts of a proposal on our commodities markets. And I do want to talk about that. The commodities market, our agriculture industry is 1 in 5 jobs in the state of Alabama. It's 20% of our economy. I am a big believer food security is national security. And the proposal would increase hedging costs by 80%, meaning banks would be far less likely or inclined to offer clearing services. So this could have a detrimental effect to our agriculture community and increase other costs providing food and fiber for our nation. When you look at inputs such as feed, seed, fertilizer prices, those have skyrocketed and prices have ended up just getting passed down to the consumer. I mean, grocery prices are up 21% since January. So do you believe that the revised Basel proposal will alleviate these concerns that our farmers and our ag community have had about Basel III? And has the Fed done anything specifically to take a look at this? And if not, will you commit to doing so?
So I don't want to get into the specific changes that we're going to make. I'll just say that we're very well aware of and very focused on that particular set of changes and, you know, paying close attention to the issues you've raised.
I appreciate that. And I also hope that the Fed when you craft these types of regulation, you really consider the relationship between the economic impact and the ability of community banks to serve their communities as well. I have heard you mention that to another one of my colleagues, so I know that you're committed to doing that. But that is incredibly important to Alabamians and our main streets all across the state. In my last few seconds, I want to touch on one more topic. So finding solutions to expanding affordable childcare is a top priority of mine. And it is something something that I know a number of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle share an interest in and believe is an important issue as well. So Chair Powell, do you believe that increasing access to affordable childcare would positively impact labor participation in our country?
I do believe that.
Thank you.
My God. She had to read her script given to her by the agricultural community and local banks.
Well, thank you for joining us.
You freaking hate that. It's like they have no, like, desire to come up with their own questions. I'll just read your script. Oh, that sounds familiar.
Over the past 2 years, you said the economy has made considerable progress toward the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation goal. Labor market conditions have cooled while remaining strong. Reflecting these developments, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are coming into better balance. And what we know is that since Biden came into office, the United States has added over 15 million jobs. Under President Biden, we had 41 consecutive months of job growth, and you've just said it again here today, that wages are up as well. Average U.S. wages and salaries grew by nearly, 16,700 between January 2021.
Just end already.
So would you agree with the statement by a ranking member earlier today that the U.S. has the greatest economy on the planet?
I certainly would.
Let me ask you this. Jumping around, and there's been talks today about the Fed's independence and how...
Did I just hear a congresswoman, a senator say, "Are we the best on the planet?"
Drafted policy options to weaken the independence of the Federal Reserve if President Trump were to be elected in November. Allegedly, former administration officials discussed policy options to erode the Fed's independence to make it easier for a president to impact interest rate decisions or fire the Fed chair at will. Chairman Powell, how important is it that the Fed has independence to provide economic stability and anchor our inflation expectations?
So I think it's actually essential. It's literally essential. And the good news is I think that's pretty broadly understood, and particularly on Capitol Hill, on both sides of the aisle. I believe that people do understand that we need to do our work in a way that's outside the political process to the maximum extent possible. Of course, we need to be accountable and tremendously transparent. If you look at the box in the Monetary Policy Report on central bank independence, it's really a box about transparency. That's the other side. So I think it's really important. I think it's an institutional arrangement that has served the public well. And, and I do believe that there's pretty wide support for it.
And you just said that it has been intentional and institutional arrangement over the years for this very reason. Correct?
Yes, this is a choice that we make, and I think it's countries around the world, advanced economies have all made this choice effectively, and the results are clear that you now have independent central banks, and you have better anchored inflation expectations, and you have better performance on inflation and better performance in the economy generally, which isn't to say there won't be shocks and crises and that kind of thing.
And then let me touch on a subject that one of my colleagues just talked about, because I was going to ask about this, which is our immigration. In Nevada, immigrants are extremely important for our economy. They're essential workers, doctors, nurses, and teachers in my community. Can you, without getting into other ancillary issues that don't impact what you do, can you talk about and elaborate on how immigration affects the employment rate and why you look at it and for what reason you look at the immigration issue?
So we don't, as you, just to make the point that you made, we don't take a position, we don't comment on immigration policy. We have no responsibility for it. It's not our job. But so we just look at the numbers and we sort of try to assess the economic consequences of immigration.
Not my job.
And over the last 2 years, 2 years ago, we had an economy where we really had a labor shortage. And what's happened is we've had a wave of immigration, and many of those people have gone to work and gone to work legally through the asylum process. Not all of them. There's also a group that has not been legally processed, but many of this latest group have been have sought asylum and then gone through the process of getting a work permit. So what that means is that employers wanted workers, and there were more job openings than there were people actively seeking work or working. And so now you have a new supply of workers and they've filled those jobs. So we have a bigger economy, but it's not a tighter economy because labor supply has increased the economic capacity. That's just the arithmetic. That's not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. There are
And
other
so-
policy choices that could be made, and they're not for us to make.
When you say greater economy.
A larger economy.
In other words, it has improved the growth of our economy.
The economy grew 3.4%, I believe, last year. And some part of that was that, as Congressional Budget Office analysis showed, and to many's surprise, there had been a really significant uncounted group of workers coming into the country who had gone to work. And that's part of the story of how the economy managed to grow that much while inflation was coming down pretty sharply. Inflation came down 2 full percentage points during 2023 while the economy was growing at 3.4%. So, and while these people were coming in, so that is part of the explanation for why we had such an interesting and pretty good year in 2023.
While these people were coming in?
Senator Kramer of North Dakota is recognized.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. As always, all of my prep goes out the window with the last question. So on the legal immigration workforce front, and I know this isn't your bailiwick, but the issue of workforce is important to the economy. I would submit to my colleagues, beyond even the people who come here seeking asylum suddenly being available for the workforce, we have 1 million plus people who we welcome in legally every year, the vast majority of whom don't come in with a job or even a skill set. And we have so much work to do, colleagues, on the legal immigration front to create a connection between economic demands for workers and the skill set and education that our immigrants bring to us. So most every other country requires some sort of skill set useful in the economy. We don't do much of that. So that's just my speech for the moment. I know, Mr. Chairman, you've gotten already lots of very specific questions, and I've heard a couple of them on Basel III. So I'm just going to make an illustration, and you can comment on it if you'd like. But there's a large generation and transmission utility in North Dakota, Rural Electric Cooperative, Basin Electric, very large G&T, members all over the upper Midwest. And they recently testified in front of the CFTC on Basel III, and they expressed a concern about how operations would be impacted if lending was curtailed or limited in any way. And they gave a real world example, and I want to just give you that example. Now, remember, this is an electricity supply that we're talking about. It's critical it remains reliable. It's critical that it remains affordable. And
hey, while he gets his words out, did you know we're doing a mastermind now? It's in person. Meetkevin.com/mastermind. You can book a call and learn more. It's higher ticket. Oh, and Tesla's rocket shipping, yes!
At a fixed price, realizing natural gas is one of those commodities that goes up and down in pretty big swings at times. But they can hedge by buying it at a fixed price for a power plant. And it protects the cooperative financially, since electricity prices, again, follow those spot prices generally. So if spot prices spike, so do electricity prices. However, with a natural gas hedge, the cooperative can generate electricity at a lower fixed fuel cost, protecting itself and its consumers from high prices. It's an upfront cost on the balance sheet between the cooperative and its bank, but it protects the reliability and affordable supply of electricity. I give you that very specific example, not even to mention that the cooperative model itself has some unique qualities about it. If you would like to comment on it, you've already stated that there are going to have to be changes. I just throw that into your box of things to think about, and you're welcome to comment if you'd like.
I'll just say we're well aware of that issue, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, then, I'm just going to speak to this independence issue. I think that the senators that have questioned you on it are correct. I share that concern, as you know, that the independence of the Fed is essential. I have resisted moves within my own party to change it, but those moves are very narrow and not very, I don't think, very realistic. And I appreciate you pointing out that from what you can tell, at least on Capitol Hill, we're all pretty much united on that front. Perception does matter. It matters a great deal. And you and I have had discussions over the years on, you were very, You admonished us strongly as Congress to spend what we needed to spend to get through the pandemic and to maintain the economy. I think you were right to do that. You were just as aggressive in not responding to calls to rein it in a little bit when Democrats brought the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan to the forefront, and I think really basically hijacked the economy and put fuel on inflation. But perception matters, and so I would just submit to you, and you haven't said you're going to do this. I don't have any reason to believe you'll do this, but any move to lower interest rates or move interest rates either direction before November 5th could certainly be a bad perception, even if there's a strong push to do that. I know you understand that, but I just want you to know that as long as you remain independent, I'll be on your side. I think neutral is a good place to be. And by the way, you have one of those jobs where being boring.
I like how this guy's trying to manipulate Powell not to lower rates right before.
Thank you.
We do our
Thank you,
best.
Mr.
Senator Kramer, Senator Warnock is recognized.
Right before the election. That's yeah. I guess you know that guy wants Trump.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The latest monetary policy report shows inflation in housing costs is gradually easing. That's good news. But many Georgians still feel the sting of unaffordable homes and mortgages. And one reason for this, you and I have discussed this, is that we aren't building enough houses. 2022 study published in the Journal of Economic Geography found that for every 10% increase in the housing stock, rents decreased by 1%. We've discussed this issue, particularly the effects of housing supply on housing costs. And we agreed that while the Federal Reserve does not control housing supply, it can help create the environment that encourages the construction of new housing, particularly affordable housing. Chair Powell, how has the Fed been working to foster an environment that encourages home construction, and what, in your view, are the challenges that remain?
So, I mean, in the long run, the absolute best thing we can do for the housing market and for the economy is to sustainably bring inflation back down so that people aren't talking about it anymore. And it's just assumed by everybody in their daily lives that inflation will be around 2%, so we don't need to talk about it, which is where we were for a long time. We want to get back to that. Interest rates can come down then, and the housing market can return to the state it was in before the pandemic, which was to say really tight. We don't have enough housing, and that's not really a monetary policy issue. In the short term, though, I would say tight monetary policy weighs on the housing market. The policy works through interest-sensitive spending, and housing is definitely at the top of the list of interest-sensitive spending. So we understand that we're suppressing. Not suppressing, but our higher interest rates, have led to lower housing starts and lower activity in the housing market. But we're doing that to get back to 2% inflation for the whole economy, so that the housing market can be on a better foundation.
Well, yeah, and related to that, when you have these high interest rates, of course, you see across the country, but particularly in a state like Georgia, these institutional investors who are coming into the space, and they're buying houses in all cash.
Yeah, blame the companies. It's the companies' fault.
And of course, the conditions for them doing that improve to their favor with higher interest rates. Would you agree with that assessment?
I know some of that's happening. I don't know that higher interest rates make it. I mean, some of they're working with.
Well, you got higher interest rates and you got institutional buyers who can purchase it all cash. Doesn't that further?
But they have to borrow the money at higher interest rates. I'm just saying higher interest rates doesn't make their investment any cheaper. And notwithstanding, I understand it's a sensitive issue, and in most markets, it's still a pretty small portion of the outstanding housing stock. But it's not an issue. It's not an issue for us. They're a legal buyer of housing. Our job is really the whole economy. I mean, it's more of a question for legislatures.
So how can the Fed better deploy its monetary tools to ensure that we are meeting key inflation objectives like housing affordability?
I think the best thing we can do is to is kind of what we think we've been doing, which is to move carefully as we think about loosening policy and make sure that we do that when we've got greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably down toward 2%. We're also keeping a close eye on the labor market, and if we see unexpected weakening there, then we could respond to that too. But that's really the best thing we can do for the whole economy and very specifically for the housing market too.
You well point out that you're limited in terms of your influence there, and there is a role for Congress to be sure, which is one of the reasons I wanted to be on this committee to introduce a down payment toward Equity Act with my colleague Senator Butler. This bill would help first-generation home buyers compete with Wall Street institutional investors by helping with down payment costs, closing costs, and costs to reduce interest rates. I look forward to continuing productive conversations with you and looking at how we can make housing.
That was not productive.
For all of Americans. If I'm running out of time here, but one of the other concerns that I maintain is with respect to
How do these people get elected?
is this issue around home appraisals.
Oh my
And the
God.
Fed is part of the interagency task force on property appraisal and valuation equity. What expertise and perspective has the Fed brought to this task force? How are you responding to this issue of home appraisals?
So, as you know, we've been an active participant in that task force, and we bring all of the expertise we have in the housing market, as well as regulatory, supervisory, and economic expertise generally, as we look at that. And I'll also say that our strongly held view is that discrimination has no place in the banking system, and that includes appraisals and other valuations.
I agree with that, and quickly, I was glad to see that CFPB and other agencies recently finalized a rule that creates strong anti-discrimination standards for automated home evaluations. The Fed has not yet approved this rule. Why not, and does the Fed plan to do so?
Sorry, why do we?
You've not yet approved the rule that was made, that was suggested by the CFPB. They finalized the rule.
But do we? Sorry, I'm not aware that it's a rule that we have to finalize too. Is that the case?
That is my understanding.
Let me follow up with you on that. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Daines of Montana is recognized.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman Powell, thanks for being here today. Certainly, it's not lost on anybody here. Election season's in full swing. And so from now until Election Day, my Democratic colleagues in Congress, as well as the Biden-Harris administration, will waste no time attempting to sell a fairy tale to the American people that financially and economically, they are better off now than they were almost 4 years ago. When President Biden took office, inflation was at 1.4%. His failed policies drove us to the highest inflation we've seen in 40 years. I can tell you the folks back home in Montana aren't fooled, because in every part of their lives, inflation is not some kind of hypothetical. They see the everyday impacts of the decades-high inflation brought on by the policies of the Biden administration and facilitated by congressional Democrats. The cost of most goods and services across the economy are more expensive than they were in 2020, and that is a fact that no amount of political spin or mental gymnastics can make go away. Here's just a couple of examples. Breakfast cereal. Prices have increased 28% since January of 2020. Gas prices increased 36% from a national average of $2.63 a gallon to $3.58 per gallon. Egg prices have jumped $3 per dozen in 2024, double the cost of $1.45 in February of 2020. And this dishonesty doesn't stop with inflation. On the labor market, while President Biden and Senate Democrats are celebrating a victory lap in light of the recent jobs report showing a 206,000 new jobs last month, they're willfully ignoring the fact that more than a third of these job gains came from the government sector. Mr. Chairman, I commend you for the job you have done thus far in trying to rein in inflation. I encourage you to continue the fight despite the political pressures you may face. I'm also encouraged by the comments you made earlier this month about the dire need for Washington to address its fiscal imbalance. I couldn't agree more. I've said many times and continue to believe that Washington's culture of reckless spending, of excessive borrowing, is leading us down a very dangerous path by leaving future generations with mountains of debt. And I'm happy to hear you agree with that assessment. Mr. Chairman, given that it's an election year, you're undoubtedly facing immense political pressure to lower rates. Thus far, you've done an admirable job in using the tools at your disposal to fight inflation, and I urge you to continue to be led by data and not calendars or political influence. You said as recently as last week that while things are trending in the right direction, you would need to see further evidence before cutting rates. So here's my question, Mr. Chairman. What specifically are you looking at and looking for as we head into the next FOMC meeting, and how do you factor in this recent labor data, and certainly the significant part of that being government jobs?
So we're looking for two things, really. One is just more good inflation data. And we had quite a lot of good inflation data the last 7 months of last year. Then we had kind of a bump in inflation in the first quarter. And now we've had one good and one very good inflation reading. And we need more good data so that we can be confident that what we're seeing is really, that's where inflation's going, that it's going back down toward 2%. We don't need to see it at 2%. Right now we're at 2.6%. So that's on inflation. On the labor market, to your question, we've seen that the labor market has cooled really significantly across so many measures, and a number of people here today have pointed them out, and the unemployment rate has moved up. You see a labor market that is now pretty much in balance, pretty much where it was in 2019. It's not a source of broad inflationary pressures for the economy now, but it's still a strong labor market. You know, 4.1% unemployment is a very good and historically low unemployment rate. So we have a mandate to support maximum employment, and we also are paying close attention. And if we see that the labor market were weakening unexpectedly, which is to say, you know, more than what we've seen in a material way, if we unexpectedly, then we could also respond to that because we have a dual mandate, and we now see the two mandates as more in balance than they were a year ago. Really, the focus had to be and was on inflation. Now we need to be focusing on both goals.
Chairman, thank you. I want to get one question on Basel III, and then we will. In March, this
Of
committee.
course there's got to be a question on this. Let's go. Of course there is. Yeah, all right, whatever. Here we go.
The Federal Reserve had provided other financial regulations with possible changes to the proposal. My question is, I continue to believe the proposal should be scrapped altogether, but could you share what changes you're planning to make and the status of the ongoing development of the updated proposal?
So we've had extensive discussions led by Vice Chair for Supervision Barr with the FDIC and the OCC. We've made a lot of progress in getting close to an agreement on a set of proposed changes. What the work that remains is to agree on a process forward. How are we going to move forward? It is our view institutionally that we need to put the changes out for comment for some period of time so that the public, all members of the public who want to comment, can see them again.
Hey, quick note, I've been sending alerts on some of these trades. I just moved strikes on one of my Tesla positions. I just thought I'd mention, like, thank you, Powell. So far, Powell gave me, what is that, 63K, a 35% move there on my $300 calls. Those actually started the day red. And then on my $270 calls, which I bought this morning and sent an alert for in the Course Member Live going, this sucker's going up, or in the Course Member Discord, up 72% on the ones from this morning. That's twice the move. So thanks, Powell. Keep going.
July 16th. To Chair Powell, please submit.
Meetkevin.com if you want to join those. No guarantees. We can always make money. Definitely can't always make money. Just saying. Check it out.
Thank you for your testimony. The committee's adjourned.
Oh, that's it. It's over. Oh, this is perfect. Oh, great. I'll do a summary here, but that's perfect timing. We ended on a stupid Basel III question. So this is great. So I'm hoping we pump now, okay? Like, Powell's walking away. This is good, all right? Powell's walking away. Got to get the dollar hollers. Got to get the tendies. All right, we're going to do a summary here of what was just said. But I actually think the market will probably pump now that this is over. I don't know. I don't understand why the market almost every single time pumps after Jay Powell's done, but whatever. I mean, I'll take it. It's like an easy play. So, okie dokie then. Let's get into the conversation of discussion of summary. Honestly, we'll keep it pretty freaking short. Okay. Push the button here. Where's the button? All right, here we go. What did Jerome Powell just say? Nothing unusual. In fact, this is fantastic news, and I will break down exactly what he did say, but what we heard today was just fantastic news for potentially the stock market rally just continuing, mostly because think about the catalysts that we have this week. Tomorrow we have the Fed speaking in the House. Today was the Senate. I mostly expect we're going to get exactly the same kind of discussion we had today tomorrow. So really, you don't really have a negative catalyst tomorrow. The next catalyst the market is really going to pay attention to are CPI release figures on Thursday morning, 7/11. That's going to be with an expectation month over month of 0.1, core month over month 0.2, year over year 3.1%, and year over year core 3.4%. So that'll be Thursday. Friday, we'll get our data on PPI. So for PPI, we're going to be looking at 0.1 on the month-over-month, 0.2 on the month-over-month core, as well as for X trade, and then a final demand year-over-year 2.3, year-over-year core 2.5. So we're expecting sort of soft inflationary data Thursday and Friday, and that's really what Jay Powell here highlighted. We got Fed bingo literally on him being asked what he thinks about the potential that he's going to get fired, which was really just sort of clutch in terms of, all right, classic way to get Fed bingo. But here are the basic bottom lines of what we heard today. The labor market has cooled considerably back to pre-pandemic levels. That, along with the quote that the labor market now seems to be, quote, fully back in balance, it's really interesting. I haven't actually heard Jay Powell tell us that the market is now, or the labor market is now fully back in balance. I thought that was actually somewhat useful and interesting to listen to because it suggests that their work on the labor market is basically done. See, I'm trying to give you what's different here, and I haven't heard that one before. In my opinion, that's bullish, and it's slowly setting up for rate cuts. If we were to expect a July rate cut, we would have had to have seed planting now. The most seed planting we got was from Nick T at the Wall Street Journal, and it was just his speculation. There were no quotes from the Fed or implications that the Fed cared. And we know last week when Jay Powell was talking to Sarah Eisen that we didn't get any kind of indications of rate cuts coming. And in fact, today, we literally wrote down when we were playing Fed Bingo, which is on screen right here, we wrote down, does not suggest when it will be appropriate to cut. We even said no hint of July cut. Both of those ended up being true on Fed Bingo. Not a surprise though. No hints here on a cut means we're really not setting up for a July cut. So unless something weird happens, even if we get a soft CPI or PPI report this week, I really don't suspect we're going to end up seeing any kind of potential for a July cut. It's just not likely, even with a good inflation read. Now, keep in mind, Thursday, Friday are the inflation reads. I want to look at the world interest rate probability. What's up, dude? You just spawned in out of nowhere, bro. World interest rate probability. So the probability right now per the market, Jack, what number is that? What's the probability of a rate cut in September? Tell the mic.
0.745.
All right, perfect. So about 74% chance of getting a rate cut. How about November? What do we got for November? What's that number right there?
1.88.
Okay, good job. And then what about December?
1.978.
Good job, dude. All right, perfect. That's the market implied trajectory right now of rate cuts. I do want to quickly, before we hit some of the other things that Jay Powell mentioned, just really, I have to do this. I have to shout out that freaking rally in Tesla. Let's go. What direction are those mountains going, buddy?
It's up and it's going at 200.
It's going up. That's what we want to hear. High five right here. Let's go right after Jay Powell's done talking. But you started seeing this move right after. I think, honestly, we're clearing the path here to go into 295. I moved to a different strike price. I took a few tendies on some call options that I had. But just this morning, I opened a few positions. If you're not part of the Stocks and Sight group yet, where you could get all my buy, sell, trade alerts, no guarantees we can make profit. But we try to. This is just an example of my Tesla call. We opened this one during the meeting. And this one, I think we opened yesterday or whatever, the day before. Anyway, I closed both of those to move to a different strike. So let's go. Thank you so much, Jay Powell. Make sure you're part of the Stocks and Sight group. Again, not every trade alert is something you should copy. Can't guarantee you should make money. Definitely, there are times there are down trades. So keep that in mind. There's always a risk with trading. But most importantly, you want to look at how can trends affect your trading portfolio and what can you do with them. Okay, perfect. So let's take a look at some of the other things we heard from Jay Powell. MeetKevin.com, by the way, for those courses on building your wealth. Stocks and Sight comes with the trade alerts. All of them come with the courses, the course member live streams. Okay, so as far as rate hikes, again, reiterated, no likely rate rises. Instead, the more likely path is rate cuts. Something I haven't heard him talk about before was that the Fed talked about how they issued a cease and desist on Evolve Bank, which, if you remember, they're involved with the whole Yada disaster with Synapse. We also, bye Jack, a lot of the similar regular discussion about what we've heard regarding supply and demand shocks, what caused inflation. That's not a big deal. One negative line was we heard, quote, do you agree any deviation from 2% inflation should be addressed now? Jay Powell said absolutely, which was a little bit more hawkish, but something to keep in mind is JP Morgan's AI model on Powell's discussion indicated that he was, quote, slightly less hawkish than usual. That's really because I think he's starting to transition into, we're about to go into a cutting regime. It's probably going to be November, December. Although you did have at least one politician who aggressively tried to argue that Jerome Powell should not cut before the election because it would appear political. Well, guess what? He's probably not going to cut before the election because guess when the November Fed meeting is? 2 days after the election. Yeah, November 7th. How convenient. Don't worry, we won't be cutting before the election. We'll cut right after the election. Leisure hospitality, I thought it was interesting. He mentioned that you would expect a slowdown in leisure and hospitality hiring since they were so behind that they finally caught up. And he also mentioned that you'd rather see, broad-based job creation. So far, we've had sort of this narrowing in job creation in the market, and that's not super good. And so they're acutely aware of that, which is also dovish. He shut down the idea that corporate greed caused inflation, talks more about supply and demand imbalances, which is the economic answer. He also shut down the idea that corporations, unfairly boost housing prices. Instead, he suggested, look, it's, they're a legal buyer of homes. They're really a small percentage of home buyers. It's a small issue, and his job is the whole economy. He also said that this was an interesting line that I thought was pretty dovish. He said, quote, we see even more risk today than we saw in March regarding unemployment and the labor market weakening. For a long time, we feared the greater risk was not being able to meet our inflation target. Now there's a greater balance between the two. But he also said there was a greater balance between the two in March. The difference is now he's saying we see more risk today than we saw in March about the labor market. So again, more of a dovish Powell here. As far as immigration, I think he gave a fair economic point here. He says, in the long run, immigration probably doesn't affect inflation. However, in the short run, immigration ironically might help inflation because you have more labor, which could reduce wages and reduce the pressure on, let's say, services costs. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily sort of the American answer. The American answer given by J.D. Vance, which is, of course, the political answer, was, oh, well, you know, wouldn't we want wages to go up so Americans can make more money? Yes, that's the American politician answer. Yes, that's what people want to hear. But is that actually better for inflation? No, of course not. So these were very fair questions or answers here by Jay Powell. And of course, we need more good inflation data, which a lot of folks expect we're going to get this week. In fact, a lot of folks are looking and saying, hey, you know what? You might want to hedge these inflation reports because we expect them to come in so low. Maybe you want to hedge and go short because if they come in hot, the market could be caught flat-footed. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to hedge CPI. I mean, if we had a really bad CPI report, I'll just buy puts at 6:30 in the morning and ride the trend. But I don't think I'm going to, you know, pay the premiums to hedge going into CPI. I'm usually not an event-based trader, though, unless it's Jay Powell. Honestly, like, I feel like I could read Jay Powell like a freaking book at this point, and I'm not trying to, like, suggest some overconfidence here. I just think my hours in on analyzing this guy are very, very high. And again, that doesn't mean we're always right. But I think it's pretty easy to trade Jay Powell, frankly. I think it's, again, crystal clear right now that we're probably going to get a rapid rate decline regime starting in November. My crystal ball today would say we're looking at 25 bips in November, and then every single meeting thereafter, 25 bips. So that way, you're probably down. I mean, how many Fed meetings do you have? 8 plus November, December, 10. By the end of 25, you'd be down potentially as much as 2.5%, would be my take. Now, that's not the Fed's projection. FOMC schedule, let me see here, because I want to look at their projection. Their projection, wait, let me guess, their projection's probably 4%. My projection at 2.5 coming down would be 5.25, would be closer to like 3% on average, right? They're probably at 4% for next year. They are... Yeah, they're at 4.1 for next year. So I personally think we're going to get more rate cuts than that, and we'll get sort of a consistent 25, 25, 25, 25. I don't think we're going to get any, like, you know, 50 basis point cuts or whatever. But what I will say is, you know, if you don't yet already follow me on X, make sure you follow me there because I've been yapping about this, not only sending alerts on the calls that I've been buying, but I've also been yapping on X. Tesla stock is about to test the 258 level. If it breaks 258, which I think it will, 295 is the next easy stop for Tesla. So check that out. I've also got some calls printing right now. I'm up 23%, I'm sorry, on $90,000 worth of calls I just bought like 20 minutes ago. So let's go! Again, I send those alerts to everybody in the Stocks and Site group. No guarantees. You got to look at the signal and decide, do I agree or disagree? What you do with your portfolio is totally up to you. It's not designed to copy. It's just designed to be an indicator of kind of where Kevin's head is and emotion is. And sometimes they're wrong. Like, I really thought NVIDIA would be rallying more right here. It's a little flat right now. I'm surprised NVIDIA is not picking up a little bit, but that's okay. My Tesla attendees are way offsetting my move on NVIDIA. Anyway. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let's go ahead and we're going to play the good old disclaimer.
Just close the fucking door. Close the door.
Exactly. And appreciate y'all. Go to meetkevin.com to learn more. Meetkevin.com/mastermind if you want to be part of an exclusive mastermind. Thinking about even having a one-on-one option there. Not sure yet, so TBD. But anyway, let's go ahead and play this. Thank you so much. Overall, I'd say bullish on the Fed here. Kind of expect some happiness over the next 24 hours. And then if we get a bullish CPI PPI read, honestly, just up from there, in my opinion. Eventually, we will get bad data, which could be earnings coming up, and that will drive markets down. We are due for a correction in markets. I'm not Tom Lee Perma Bull here, okay? I'm Mr. Flip Flop. Get it right, never forget it. Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is neither personalized financial advice nor real estate advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show should not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purpose of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services which we may benefit from. I personally operate and actively manage ETF and hold long positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuers other than HouseHack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Tesla keeps going! Let's go! Buy more calls! We're going to 295, baby! Let's go! See ya!